All right, so I'm Matt Brower, Chair of the State Committee, and call the meeting to order. And we'll introduce the voting members for the State Committee first, and then we'll go around the room and Scott?
Scott Ryan, voting member.
Okay,
Voting, voting.
okay, and I don't believe Aaron.
Aaron is-
Aaron? Huh?
Come on.
Okay. Darren Hinkle, voting member, and, anything? Okay, all right, so, around the
All right, Bethany Bixby, Executive Director of the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee.
Jessica Armstrong, Oneida County Soil and Water and CDEA President.
Lydia Brinkley, Upper Susquehanna Coalition.
Melissa Gordon, Administrative Assistant for Albany office.
Greg Dutcher, Executive Director, Delaware County SWCC.
Victor DiGiacomo, State Committee Field Staff for Western New York.
Ben Muskin, State Committee Field Staff.
DJ Emmerich, Region 2 Field Staff.
Carrie McElroy, Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition Watershed Coordinator.
Good morning, Ryan Cunningham, State Committee Field Staff. Knapp Watershed Programs Coordinator, State Committee.
Jennifer Clifford, Resilient Farming Program Manager, State Committee.
Tim Clark, Engineer, State Committee.
Tony Giacomo, representing New York State DEC.
Go back to you, Tim. And then Matt.
Tim Sheldon, Climate Policy Analyst, State Committee.
Jennifer Kelly, Shenango County Soil and Water.
Wendy Walsh, Tioga Soil and Water, and the coordinator for the Upper Susquehanna Coalition.
Travis Ferry, State Committee Field Staff for Southeast New York.
Gideon Frisbee, AEM and CNMP Specialist for State Committee.
Brendan Jordan, AEM and CNMP Specialist for the State Committee.
Jess Miller, AEM Base Coordinator for New York State Ag Markets and State.
Melanie Kuko, Region 7 DEC Permits.
Morgan Harbell, Research Scientist, New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Water Supply Protection.
Good morning, Greg Albrecht, Principal Environmental Analyst of the State Committee and Ag Market.
Morning, Brian Steinmiller, Assistant Director, Division of Land and Water Resources at Ag and Markets.
Doug Pierce, Cuba County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Slade Cox, Dairy Farmer, Solar Grazer, Director of Cuba County Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm Scott Finkel, State Committee Regional Coordinator for Central New York and the CREP.
Caitlin Stewart, Manager, Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Ron Bush, AEM and CNP Specialist.
I'm Tom Haley, I'm with the DEC Region 8, Regional Department.
And I'm Derek Lance. I'm the regional director here for DEC. I just want to welcome you all to Region 7. I'm so thrilled you're in our office today. I think there's just such amazing synergies between the soil and water conservation districts, the state committee, ag and markets, DEC. I'm so excited to help us here and what we're able to all do together to protect the water and the land that we all depend on. I'm going to be in and out, and I'm just really look forward to the incredible work that you're doing and what we can do to support and bolster the stuff moving forward. So really quick, the bathrooms are outside the suite, and so just folks will let you in and out. You guys are going to have lunch in with some windows, so you'll be able to see a little bit of the outside today in our Salmon River room, and we'll work to make sure you don't get lost on your way over there through the hallways. And we're just really thrilled to be able to host you, and you're welcome back anytime. So thank you very, very much. And I'm going to step out now to my next meeting, and I wish you a very successful meeting. Thank you so much. Really, really thrilled to have you guys here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'll just welcome all of our partners and conservation districts, members of the public who have joined us virtually. Please enter your name and your affiliation into the chat for our minutes.
All right, so for the review and approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Any comments or discussion? Motion to approve.
I'll make that motion. Maureen.
Second.
I'm sorry.
All right, we'll do the voting. Scott?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Derek?
Aye.
And I for me as well. Okay,
I'm sorry, I missed 2 seconds. Okay, appreciate it.
All right,
Yeah, just started watching. Zoom like.
All right. Yes, so I'll start with just a quick budget update. Because there is not much to update on at this point. New York State does not have an approved budget for fiscal year 2026-2027. This includes the Environmental Protection Fund, which supports many of the programs that are administered by the state committee. Just a reminder to folks, the executive budget was proposed in January, and we covered that at a February meeting in March. The Assembly and the Senate both released their proposed budgets. And now they're in the process of negotiating those budgets and hopefully working towards an approved budget. For now, we are continuing to focus on our program development for our upcoming rounds of CRF and non-point source, but we need to wait until that budget is passed before we can actually request to spend those funds for our next rounds. So hopefully that comes sooner rather than later. Regarding the New York State Environment donation, so we received a letter that was addressed to Matt Brower, Chair of the State Committee, from the New York State Environment Committee seeking financial support and volunteer support for the New York State Environment competitions. So first and foremost, if there's anyone of the voting members or our advisory members who are interested in volunteering, please let me know and I will forward on the information that we need to be able to sign up to do that. But I wanted to discuss the financial support for the New York State Environment Fund with this committee. Since 2014 and maybe before that, but or the spreadsheet I was looking at goes back as far as 2014. The state committee has worked with the department to make a donation in the amount of $1,000 that is used to support the New York State Environment Fund. This year, I would like the state committee to continue to make that donation, but I also would like us to consider requesting the department, or making a request to the department to increase that donation, to the Environment Fund, not to exceed $5,000. The costs, for everything are on the rise, and this event needs continual financial support from the partners to make sure we are continuing to connect students who are in high school with the environment, set them up for potential careers in the future. In addition to the letter that was shared with all of the voting members, I also sent around a little bit of a background sheet that we received from the Environment Committee that talks all about the Environment and why it's great. I think it's an amazing competition. When I was in high school, I didn't participate in it, but as an employee of Wyoming County Soil and Water and as a state committee employee, have been able to participate in both local and the state Environment competitions. And number one, it's just so much fun and it's very inspirational to see the students that come out and participate in that event and listen to the oral presentations. I take a lot of inspiration and I think it's worth considering. But I wanted to have our voting members discuss that here today before making that request. I will mention that I reached out to our fiscal department at Fiscal Management Division at the department. The donation is generally paid out of our general fund, but they did indicate to me that it may be difficult to get an increase. I don't think that means we shouldn't try if that's something that you all support, but I just wanted to put that out there. And the process to do that would be, I think, drafting up a letter with justification why we should continue to support the Environment and so forth and send it along for review.
Well, I'll start off by saying I fully support anytime there's an opportunity to educate younger people on these topics. I support it 100% myself. And so I fully believe the environmental was a good thing for the students. And matter of fact, I was just talking to my niece's sophomore about it the other day. He's an FFA, and asked him if they talked about maybe putting the thing together, and hopefully they will. And so encourage the FFA instructors schools to do that again. So I'm a big fan of it, and I would be supportive of increase. But before we move on with that, I want to introduce our voting member who stepped in.
Thanks, Matt. Megan Hauser from Wyoming County.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I'm a huge supporter of Envirothon, probably from every direction, having taken students to Envirothon and watching some of those students grow into environmental careers. I teach at the Envirothon for Monroe County. I've done so for Genesee County. I've been a judge. I'm 100%. Any increase that we can do, it's well worth it. I would certainly like to encourage more schools to participate, and some of that is getting someone at the school who has some passion, and have the schools support them. So I'm not sure, how all that goes down with the committee, but I know that's a very important piece. But yes, I support totally.
Matt, do we have to ask how much we should be asking for? Is it any amount above 1,000, or do we make a specific
Well,
request?
you said up to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, I guess, in the past, the justification why 1,000, but my thought is, I'd like to increase that, but not to exceed 5,000. I think that's reasonable. But if you want to approve something in between 1 and 5, that works. I think that would be fine.
Do you have a number in mind that you think would go?
Well, I'd like to shoot for 5,000 and see what happens. And then if they tell us no, then maybe there's they would agree to something lesser.
And this hasn't increased since when?
2014.
So,
Yeah.
10 years.
Increase.
Any thoughts, Darren?
No, so we just need to make a motion, Matt?
Yeah, motion.
So I make a motion that we apply for an increased amount for the Envirothon up to $5,000.
Second.
I'll second that.
Second that.
Oh, Mary Ann.
All right, so we'll go ahead and vote on that. I'll start with you, Darren.
Aye.
Scott? Aye.
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 Okay, and aye for me as well. So that was that.
Well, thank you all very much. I will keep everybody updated as to if you're successful in getting that, and if not, then we'll be trying to match.
Yep, then there's that. Okay, we are going to do the reports of the voting numbers.
Yeah, so that is a little bit of a different change. I mentioned last month I might be reorganizing our agenda just a little bit, so I thought it'd be appropriate to move up the voting member and the advisory member reports a little bit earlier in the agenda.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll start, and we're still working on trying to get our office building finished in Fulton County. We are making progress. I don't know at this point when we're gonna be moving in, but hopefully by late summer, maybe. And the other thing I just wanted to report was I recently started receiving emails from the NYACD on different updates and so on and so forth, which I hadn't been getting before, but I really appreciate that because there's a lot of things going on both at the national and state level that I've been aware of. So thanks for that. And so Scott, if you have anything to report from that.
Well, first thing, the NYCD annual meeting will be held Monday, October 26th and Tuesday, October 27th at Hampton and Leanne. I guess we've been hearing requests for it to be moved in different places of the state, so probably the last year in Pennyhan, we will look into other places across the state. And the Great Lakes Commission survey, I don't know if it's over, I believe it's over, but hopefully a lot of districts, fill the survey out, it'll help in numerous ways, as it was explained previously. And NYSD board would like this, because state committee for a list of the directors of the soil water district boards, so we make sure we have a complete updated list.
Just a quick, I guess, update on that. I've been in communication with both Blanche and Sam and have asked Blanche to draft an email that we can then send out on our listserv to district managers, requesting that they share, whatever contact information they're looking for regarding their directors. And hopefully that helps and gets a response.
Go ahead.
Well, Monroe County is very busy right now with tree orders. We had, almost 700 orders. So I don't even know how many trees that equated to, but a whole lot. And we're also, ending, well, the last planting for our Forest Service grant is coming through this next couple of weeks. So many thousands of trees going in over the area. We've been working with PRISM on a couple of efforts. They have a trail survey going on following certain invasive species in the area. And not sure if this is the appropriate time to mention it, but there's a lot of controversy out in Genesee County with a data center that's been proposed. The STAMP project, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's right next to the Tonawanda Indian Reservation and some natural wildlife refuges, one for the state, one for federal. And the people that are living there really don't want it, and there's a lot of concerns. So I'm not sure where we fit there, but I think it's of interest when we're talking about the amount of water and electricity, et cetera, resources that these places are using. So just thought I'd mention that.
Megan?
Not an update per se. I was just going back to Bethany's mention of the Envirothon. The 2 of my 3 kids did that. Just found it very useful and a great experience.
Derek? Any report?
I think I'm all set for now. Thanks.
All right. Invite. Okay. Yeah. And we'll go to
Okay. Ag and Markets. Do you have an advisory report today?
Hey, Bethany, I can just mention to the group that we continue to work on the staffing plan for the division and the Soil and Water Committee. And I think we made an announcement last month, but I just wanted to remind everybody that Lauren Brzezowski, longtime environmental analyst for the state committee, having served as a regional coordinator, having served as a program manager, recently retired, worked full-time on the family farm. And according to what I see on Facebook, looks like she's loving life right now. So with that being said, record timing, the support from the department has been incredible to be able to receive approval to backfill that position. And that just went out. Bethany sent that to the listserv. So encourage everybody to take a look at that. That is an Albany-based program manager position, associate environmental analyst. To continue to advance the ecosystem space management program. So more to come on that. And we're also excited that we'll be able to fill our senior environmental analyst position. We'll be able to take over the data management and GIS-based services for not only the committee, but also working with the entire division and sometimes also other divisions as well, right, Tyler? So more to come on that. We'll be able to report on that, I think, at the May meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now SWCC. Dan, sorry.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Just, I'm doing things, this is probably DC and Cal's, tomorrow there's a summit, going on in Ithaca to look at how we define the land grant mission, and, I guess for the 21st century, a little bit, and, so, as things come out of that, this is just the first step in that process probably, so I'll keep the committee updated if there's, as things come out of that.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have anyone on the line representing Cornell Gales? All right, CDEA.
Thank you, Bethany. I did send my report to Bethany to append to the minutes, but there's a couple things that I did want to point out. I have been meeting with the forward partners to see what they expect from me and what I expect from them going forward in our partnership throughout my presidency. We also had a special board meeting in the beginning of April. We discussed a plethora of things, but one of them was supporting Jennifer Kelly and the SPAC committee in submitting an application for the Agricultural and Food Systems Development Grant Program for our basic technician training program that we're hoping to get started. And then a couple of events that are upcoming is tomorrow I'm actually meeting with all the new board members that are oncoming to CDEA, get them up to speed, and kind of see what they will look like going forward in their positions. We also have our first in-person CDEA meeting on June 23rd. The location is to be determined, but we're looking at Division 3. And then we also have our August CDEA meeting scheduled for August 27th. It is going to be a virtual meeting, or anyone is welcome to come to my office in person. Forewarning, my office is under construction, so whoever comes, just so you know, but thank you for having me here today and submitting the report.
Thank you. DEC. You want to kick things out, John?
Sure. Thank you. Now, I don't know that I have any major updates. I mean, we're still waiting on the proposed COGS update, 1.2.6 on the nutrient values for drinking water sources. So that includes new standards for Class A and Class AA waters, still under review, but proposed and online still. And we'll also set water quality standards in terms of concentration limits for drinks. So when those are finalized, we'll let you know, but we'll have new targets to try to hit. Rethink some of our strategies to kind of meet those water quality standards moving forward. That's it for me.
We have a number of other DEC folks in the office. Does anyone have an update today? No pressure.
I'll mention quickly, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty with Article 24, what freshwater wetland program. We are waiting kind of interpretation from Albany. This, the process, for many of you probably know there was a legal challenge. Process itself kind of was annulled, but the kind of the law and stuff are still in place. So we're trying to work through the details on what exactly that means. So hopefully within the next week, we'll get some guidance and start sharing it through our regional.
Can I just ask a quick question about that? So if something is in process already, if someone's waiting to work on their land, waiting for a decision, what is going on with that right now? Is it all on hold?
It's on hold for the most part. We should have regional, some guidance out to regional staff. We flew out yesterday, haven't received it yet. So as soon as we get that, then we'll be moving forward. My understanding is, as a starting point, we're kind of looking at previously mapped wetlands. We continue to review those, but then the larger wetlands that meet that 12.4 acre large size, we'll probably move forward with those. It's the smaller ones that are tied to some of those unique characteristics that are a little more question that we're waiting on more detail.
Thank you. So question, so is that 90-day review is extended if you've put a request
I
in?
do not know the answer to that. I have to check with our Zero habitat on open.
They did disable the link for that 90-day jurisdictional determination, so.
Oh, what if you got in before? Don't know. Okay.
I don't know much yet.
The best advice is to contact your regional contact with DEC. If it's related to a jurisdictional determination, you can reach out to our Albany Bureau of Habitat or a regional.
Thank you.
I will warn you that right now, we probably don't have a lot of information to give you, but as soon as we get the guidance. And I'll check right now and see if it's.
No pressure, right?
Thank you. Department of Health.
So for those of you who may not know, I am in the New York City watershed section with the Bureau of Water Supply at DOH. And this year we are in kind of what we would maybe consider the planning year for the New York City FAD or filtration avoidance determination. So this year we have to write our compliance report of the city, of New York City, and then city has to provide us a bunch of things. We will also be hosting public information Q&A sessions at some point this year. Notices will go out eventually. We have not set any dates yet. There will be, I think, we're planning maybe 1 in person and then 2 virtual between the Delaware watershed and then the Croton watershed as well for the city. And then next year, later this year, we'll be in the process of writing the new 2027 FAD and hopefully get it out by the end of next year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on the line from Department of State?
Hi, good morning. Pete Zimmer, Department of State. I do have a couple announcements, perhaps. Our track of the Bond Act, the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act funding stream is available now. RFA was posted March 26th. I'm going to drop a link to that RFA in the chat. There are 2 tracks of funding available, one being the Coastal Rehabilitation and Resilience Projects, and the other being Inland Flooding and Local Waterfront Revitalization Program Implementation Projects. $20 million available for both of those tracks, with a minimum grant amount of $300,000 for the Coastal Rehabilitation and Resilience Projects, and a minimum grant amount of $150,000 for the LWRP implementation projects. Those applications are due June 26th, and that goes through the consolidated funding application round. Our normal LWRP project round is not out yet, but that is coming soon. Also with the CFA, we anticipate sometime in May. Normally applicants know before DOS project managers know, so I don't know. And I think that's it for DOS. Thank you.
For those 2 new programs that are coming out that are supported by the Bond Act funds, will there be informational webinars about those?
There was one webinar April 7th. I don't see the link to that webinar is posted on the link that I'm going to drop in the chat right now. And there are also 2 rounds of questions available. The first due date of questions was due April 14th, but the next round of questions are due May 14th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
How about SUNY ESF?
I dropped this is Christine Georgakakos from SUNY ESF. I dropped, we have a annual meeting on healthy water solutions that's coming up in May. I dropped the link for that in the chat. It's free and open to anybody if you're in the Syracuse area and excited about coming. And I think that's it, all I have to share.
Thank you very much, Christine. And NRCS.
Good morning, Bethany. Good morning, all. Nothing real big to report from NRCS. We're just in the middle of our ranking and applications and the obligation period for FY26. We've had some roundtable discussions that were part of the chief's priorities moving forward. I don't believe we'll have any more of those roundtables, but if we do, I'll make sure that SWCC is a part of that. And Bethany, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Blake. Okay, that concludes our advisory member report.
All right, we'll move on to the program update. We'll start with the Ag Point with Greg.
That's good. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Bethany, for pulling it up. So I'm Greg Albrecht, and I am absolutely subbing in for a very organized and hardworking Jason Kokinos, who's the program manager for the Ag Point Source program. Thanks to all of the soil and water districts who submitted applications for the round 31 Ag Point Source. And that's why Jason's not here today. He's head down processing all those applications so they can get them into a completeness and eligibility review among our staff, and then ultimately en route to our advisors who serve as reviewers and rankers for those projects. So Jason put together some slides. It's the standard update and dashboard, and maybe this is for the meeting minutes and notes and for your awareness, and just draw your attention to the lower left-hand portion of that. And that's the progress since the last meeting. So thank you to all the districts who brought in projects that were to be closed out, and all the regional coordinators who took it the next step, and then Jason Kokinos and Brian Steinmuller for totally closing those out in the reviews. That's a substantial amount of 11 closed since the last meeting, and 3 pretty close, and around 30 contract pending. So lots of good progress. We always like to see higher numbers in that completed column and lowest numbers possible in the canceled column. And we're making good steps forward there. Unless there's questions on anything there, Jason also put together what's next slide for round 31. So I mentioned the first step that happened yesterday. And Jason's hard at work on the next step with late April to early May to get those ready so that if there's any exchange for allowed additions or to the proposals with districts, that those happen as soon as possible. In late May through June, that's when those will be in possession of our advisory members who serve as reviewers to score them. And then with a goal to have that ranked list for consideration to the state committee at their July meeting. If all goes well, Jason will have that data to then work in August on award letters, any debriefs, the procurement record, and having contracts put together and making progress in September. So that's Jason's sketch of the months ahead for round 31. And of course, if you remember two meetings ago or so, we ran through timelines for CRF and Ag Point Source. And just like Jennifer's also doing right now, you're working on the current round, but then also developing the detail for the next round. So certainly that's a parallel process for Jason. Not today, he's up to his eyeballs in applications, but he's always got an eye on that. And you'll see that in the upcoming SPAC meetings and TAC meetings at the state committee too for round 32. That's the quick update on round 31. If there's any questions, and if not, there's a one amendment for the state committee's consideration. There aren't any staff approved amendments to make note of during the meeting, but there is one for state committee consideration and vote. And that's from Region 1 in Genesee County. It's a round 27 aquifer protection project. And the nature of the amendment is a time extension from March 1st, 2026 to March 1st, 2027. The reason for that is the district is seeking a 12-month no-cost extension on its Round 27 project with one farm in the lower Genesee watershed, completing an irrigation and water management system and a waste storage and treatment systems. Work began under the project under new farm ownership for the previous time extension amendment, and the project engineer required a partial determination of New York State jurisdictional wetlands, which delayed implementation. A negative jurisdictional determination has been obtained, and that was in March, and the farm is obtaining quotes for the contractors, so they're en route to for implementation. The time extension is being sought to complete contractor bids, construction during summer 2026, and subsequent grant reporting requirements. This amendment is supported by Victor DiGiacomo, Regional and AEA, and we refer to, and is recommended, and we refer to the state committee for their consideration and vote.
Any questions or discussions on that amendment?
I've got a question. Will the bids come in under budget or within the budget constraints, or you'll get issue getting a contractor awarded the project?
Given trends, we probably can expect bids higher than the budget, given the time that's gone by since the award. But I think the farm is prepared for that reality and eager to get started.
And Victor, do you think that's a long enough window? Contractors ain't even selected yet.
Tough to say. We may be here next April.
Yeah. And this is already had one extension.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Where's the source of the water that they're gonna be using?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask the chair.
I'm just curious.
If there's no other questions or discussion, we'll move on to the voting. Darren?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Aye for me as well. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Matt.
Move on to the climate resilient farming program with Jen.
Hello.
I knew you were here someplace.
Thank you. Yes, I'm gonna go over the climate resilient farming program just as update, or not an update, but a base. CRF program goals are to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on farm, increase carbon sequestration on ag lands, and help farms prepare for a changing climate and become more resilient. Next slide, please. Or page. So round 9, we awarded, so you approved in February the ranked list, and we awarded shortly after that 25.3 million. The press release came out from the governor's office on April 1st. We had 6 districts request debriefings to discuss their unfunded proposals. Those went very well. They received some good feedback, and I actually received some good feedback from them as well. That will be helpful for round 10. Regional coordinators are currently reviewing plans of work for contracting. Once approved, contracts will be developed. Next slide. So looking forward to round 10, last week I provided an update on potential changes to the TAC committee, the Technical Advisory Committee. This week presenting to the SPAC committee with districts for their information and feedback on what we're looking for round, or outlook to round 10. The draft RFP materials will come to the state committee tentatively at the June meeting. Once approved, those RFP materials are finalized and reviewed by department council, with a tentative release in September 2026, later this year. So this is a snapshot of all the rounds for CRF. We have now closed the first 3 rounds. The last project in round 3 canceled since we last met. So that completed all of the open projects in round 3. Round 9, the contracts aren't executed yet, so that's why you see all zeros, but we have awarded funds. We didn't award 94 million. That's the total. That's we awarded 25 million for round 9. The total of all the rounds for CRF is 94 million.
It's a good goal for a future round.
That's a big jump. Next time.
So it looks like round 4 is close to being.
Yeah, round 4 is close to closing out, so most of those contracts are coming up on the end date. They're either extending, closing, canceling. Things are moving in round 4. So that's actually what, I think all of the amendments we have this. Oh no, those are round 6. Never mind, I stand corrected. But yeah, we're getting close on round 4. So changes since last meeting, we had 1 cancel, we've had 0 closeouts, but several are under review. Round 3 is now closed, so 24 projects were completed and 6 projects canceled.
Do you know why, I noticed on the other side, there's, a fair number of cancellations, is that a financial thing or?
Some of them changes on the farm, cancellation, particularly this last round of 3-1, there were just some changes on the farm. They just weren't able to take on this project anymore, so it got canceled. Some of the early rounds had, if people weren't able to jump on the project right away, they ended up kind of getting canceled because things change on the farm. The farm is either financially no longer able to pursue or management-wise, something happened. That's typically why they cancel.
So it's not always a question of not enough money, it's other things too.
Yeah, usually it's other things. Usually the farm is still willing to pursue if sometimes it comes in over budget. A lot of the farms that end up going, through our programs end up paying a good portion in match, even sometimes higher than what they originally proposed. But because they have the state funding to go along with it, it makes it feasible to do those projects. So they're successful in the end. So that's all I had update wise for CRF. I do have a few amendments though. So we can dive into those. There was one staff approved amendment, from Region 3 AEA Scott Bigbaum approved a budget amendment for an Otsego Round 8 project. It was a micro irrigation and solar utilization project. The district just did not, they found other sources for the engineering, so that funding is being shifted to another category in the grant. So amendments for your consideration. The first is in Region 4 from St. Lawrence, St. Lawrence. This was a round 6 track 1 project. They are requesting a no-cost time extension because the farm is working on final design changes with the engineer and consultants, and we'll be ready to bid on this project this spring, with construction pending for the summer of 2026. The farm and district are still committed to completing this project within the new time frame.
Any questions or discussion? No, we will vote. Gary?
Motion?
Oh, what? Motion.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Second.
Now we will move on to voting. Gary?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
And aye for me as well, so that one is passed.
Thank you. The next one is a Region 5 from Essex Soil and Water. This was a round 6 track 2 project for a water resiliency project. The district is requesting a no-cost time extension because the project required a prolonged engineering and design phase due to site-specific complexity associated with irrigation, water management, infrastructure, and coordination with related farm improvements. Additional time was required for both the farm to secure a qualified ag engineer and complete design revisions, and navigate permitting considerations with regulatory agencies. Obtaining bridge funding, procurement of contractors, and scheduling of construction further delayed implementation, and current winter conditions now limit the remaining construction window prior to contract expiration. The Farm and District are still committed to completing this project within the new time frame.
Any questions or discussions on this one? If not, motion to approve.
Yeah, I saw motion.
Second. All right, now we'll move forward. Brad?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
And I for me as well. So that is
The last one is with Region 5, Washington County Soil and Water. It's a Round 6 Track 2 project. The district is requesting a no-cost time extension because the farm has had difficulty securing an engineer for the project with that fits within the budget. Cost and availability have been constraints in securing an engineer and has delayed the project. The farm and district are committed to completing this project within the new time frame.
So, what, was there an engineer initially, but the cost was too high?
No, I think it was that the project is smaller. So securing the engineer has become difficult. I think they maybe had one, but then availability to get them out to the project site maybe did not work out.
Okay. So I think something that wasn't interesting enough. Timeline maybe for.
Yeah, I think it was just such a small project, was not going to net the firm, perhaps a lot of money, so it fell down on their to-do list.
Yeah, yeah.
So they got an engineer now?
They did secure an engineer.
Now, yes.
Yeah, for 2 of the systems are fully designed as of late last summer. So 2 of them are ready to go. 2 of them still need a little bit more work, but on those ones, the districts can do a lot of the legwork on the other 2, so.
So well in process.
Any other questions or discussion? Motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, voting there.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
I for me as well.
Thank you very much. Those are all the amendments I had, and that was all the updates for CRF program.
Watershed Coalition presentation.
Yeah, and while Terry, is getting set up and ready to go, I just wanna, first and foremost, thank all of the districts, and watershed coordinators who have agreed to come today and spend 10-15 minutes talking about, the various watershed coalitions that we have across the state. Not all of our watershed coalitions are represented here today. It's a busy time for everybody, so I wanted to just recognize that there's what, like 11? So we're at 10 or 11 watershed coalitions across the state that encompass almost the entire land of New York State. There's a couple areas that don't necessarily have a watershed coalition, but this is a great tool. I think for districts to be able to get more conservation on the ground, and we wanted to bring in here today to talk about what they do. So, Gary.
Thank you. Do you still have availability to click through my slides? Or no? I can do it.
I don't think I can.
Okay, no
Sharon, I
worries.
don't think I can.
Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition. I'm Carrie McElroy, the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition Watershed Coordinator, and I will interchangeably use Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition and ELC throughout the presentation. So the time we have today, I'm first going to walk through a little bit of background about the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition, and then some of what we've been doing to develop the EFLC as a program, and then lastly, how we've been implementing the program. So who is the EFLC? We are a coalition of 11 member soil and water conservation districts in the heart of the Eastern Finger Lakes region and include Cayuga, Chemung, Cortland, Onondaga, Ontario, Schuyler, excuse me, Seneca, Steuben, Tompkins, Wayne, and Yates counties. And the districts are working together to implement soil and water conservation best management practices to help reduce sediment and nutrient pollution in the watershed. So the Eastern Finger Lakes watershed comprises about 30% of the Lake Ontario drainage basin and includes the watersheds of Atisco, Skaneateles, Owasco, Cayuga, Keuka, Seneca, Canandaigua Lakes, and the Seneca River and Erie Canal. And now I'd like to share a little bit with you about the Eastern Finger Lakes developing as a program. So I'll start with some milestones from 2025 to help contextualize our progress so far. So in June 2025, Cayuga Soil and Water Conservation District, as the contract administrator, signed the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition Capacity Contract with DEC. And this is a $1.2 million annual allocation from the Environmental Protection Fund. And it is primarily to support district technical assistance staff time towards planning, implementation of best management practices, also supports funding, support for engineering costs and other BMP implementation planning, and then has a component for building staff capacity, staff professional capacity. And then I was hired and started in the beginning of September of 2025. And then in November, Cayuga Soil and Water Conservation District signed the BMP implementation contract with the Department of Agriculture and Markets. And this is the $42 million from the Bond Act and Clean Water Investment Act that is dedicated to the implementation of best management practices throughout the watershed with the intent of reducing sediment and nutrient pollution to help mitigate the appearance of harmful algal blooms and other water quality impairments. And then in the winter, over the winter of 2025 and 26, the districts have been really busy working on identifying and getting projects approved throughout the watershed once we had those two contracts in place. And then, as I mentioned, we've been developing the program actually for a couple of years, even before there were contracts, but now I'd like to share just a couple of those program development updates with you. So first, this is the Eastern Finger Lakes logo. We worked with a graphic designer who wanted to capture the stunning Finger Lakes sunrises and sunsets while highlighting the work that the districts are completing in the watershed. And then the wheat within the name is a nod to our agricultural partners. Next up is the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition website. And this is sort of a preliminary landing that we wanted to create while we're still deep in the program implementation phase. And so this is a quick glance. And then, so this is the homepage, just a portion of the homepage. This is a quick look at part of the About Us page. And my slides getting tricky on me. There we go. And a little bit more of the About Us page. So we're sharing who we are, where we're working, a little bit more about the program, a little bit more about funding sources and the watershed in this compact FAQ form. I apologize, everyone in the room. I know you can't read that from here, but please go visit the site and check it out. And then once we have a good collection of implemented projects, we plan to expand the site, obviously, with some project highlights, a photo gallery, and some other functionality. And that brings us to, I mentioned earlier that DEC is supporting professional capacity building for soil and water conservation district staff and with the capacity funding. So you can see a few of the modules on the screen. That's just a sampling of what's available. So Cuba Soil and Water Conservation District contracted with a regional engineering company to develop and build out and implement an immersive technical training program for staff. So the groups, the training modules themselves are all going to look a little bit different, but in general will consist of 5 to 6 staff and will be based around actual Eastern Finger Lakes projects in these categories. And with that, a little bit more about projects and how we're implementing the FLC as a program. So first, this is our first full construction season. And so the districts already have some project in implementation or in construction or imminently ready for construction. And obviously, we were going to work as long as the weather will let us throughout the year. And then in the fall, we're looking forward to hosting our first public watershed forum. And then the winter will be dedicated to continuing any projects that are a little bit longer in the planning process or are planned for implementation in 2027, working through that project approval process. And I mentioned earlier, I think I meant to and maybe skipped over it, we've been working with Ag and Markets on developing an online project management and reporting tool. Thank you very much, Tyler. And coming soon to a grant program near you. So this has been an indispensable way to collect consistent data across all of the districts. And this just shows a little bit of some of the questions. This is a very brief glimpse of what the tool offers, collecting landowner, what the associated clean water plans are. Are there any benefits to disadvantaged communities, for instance? The tool collects all of the budget information and categorizes it for the different contributions, whether that's the landowner or the district or whatever might be covered under the state EFLC funding. And this is one example of the many really helpful drop-down menus that keeps everything really consistent across the reporting. And then it's easy to track both agricultural and non-agricultural practices. And again, the drop-down menus keep everything really clean for identifying what the eligible and bondable main system is, and then also any individual associated BMPs that might be part of the project. So with that, a few statistics. So far, we have about 19 approved projects. That's from DC and Ag and Markets. And those are kind of scattered throughout the watershed and do include both ag and non-ag projects. Some of those are erosion and sediment control, some manure management, stream stabilization, roadage stabilization, and wetland construction, to name just a few. We estimate the total expenditures right now are about $5.3 million. And of that, approximately 1.1 million is in matched funds from either the landowner, the districts, or other local sources. And with that, everybody's still with me. I'd like to share a few success stories that were implemented toward the end of last year. So the first is a livestock heavy use area in the Cayuga Lake watershed. This was a manure and agricultural waste treatment system. And it included a composting facility, heavy use area protection, and vegetated treatment area. And I'll let the photos speak for themselves for just a moment. And our second is an example of field gully erosion in the Seneca Lake watershed. And I forgot to say in the last one, and then also this one, these are both located in DC high priority subwatersheds. So these are all the before photos. These are all of the after photos, and this erosion control system consisted of 3 water and sediment control basins with about 3,400 feet of underground outlet. And this project was just completed in December 2025, so you'll note the bare soil. This proceeding is going to take place this spring. And lastly, this is a manure management project in the Cayuga Lake watershed, also in a DEC high priority sub-watershed. This is a manure and agricultural waste treatment system that consisted of a composting facility and a vegetated treatment area. And this one is keeping the manure away from a nearby tributary. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time. I enjoyed sharing this update with you and happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any more details on the training modules that were involved?
Sure, what kind of details? What kind of detail?
Well, I was kind of curious, so is that's just to train district technicians on how to design BMPs, is that the?
Essentially, right, design, evaluate, sorry, I did have a few more notes, but I couldn't see my notes, so thanks for your patience. Let me get back to that slide. So, right, assessment, design, and construction and evaluation techniques.
Is there an opportunity to like expand that to maybe some in-field training?
Oh, they're doing in-field
Oh,
training,
they are?
it's immersive,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
yep, so
I thought
they're
they were just-
right out, the districts are giving the engineer project ideas, and the whole group is going out, they're meeting with the landowner.
Oh, good.
Then they're taking it's an inventory essentially at the site, and then using LiDAR data through CAD to go back and do the design. And then at the end, they present the design to the landowner. And then I also, forgot to say that as long as the landowner is supportive of the design that was created, then that will be implemented through, presumably through the BMP funds.
Good, okay, yeah, I thought maybe it was just something they were doing online.
No, apologies for not having my entire
No,
presentation.
that's good, that sounds like, something that's really.
Yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity.
I have a question. On one of your slides, you said that projects are approved by either markets and DEC. So that's that 42 million, all projects have to be approved by both of them before you can move forward?
Yes.
Is that by practice type or by location?
It's all projects are proposed. So we have a working group meeting that meets Mondays usually, maybe other Monday, depending on buying. We have our own committee between DEC, it's to review and approve.
Here we'll be including our next presentation.
Very good. Thank you.
So the next one will be the Black River Watershed Coalition. Lewis County.
Michelle, I'm pulling up some slides unless you had something you want to share.
I do have, if I can share my slides.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
Okay. Okay, can you see that in presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak today about the Black River Watershed Coalition. We are a relatively new coalition, though we've been working together in the Black River for several years. I'm Nichelle Swisher. I'm the district manager of Lewis County Soil and Water Conservation District and the president of the Black River Watershed Coalition. Just for perspective, you're looking at the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence Basin, and then in floating, bouncing is the Black River Watershed at the end of Lake Ontario. So it is a major tributary of Lake Ontario that drains the Adirondacks at Tug Hill and the Black River Valley. Just also for perspective, there are 5 counties that make up the Black River Watershed. That includes Jefferson, Lewis, Hamilton, Herkimer, and Oneida. In this map, we're also all members of the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance. we're utilizing any funding that we have right now. We don't have any contracts through DEC otherwise, is basically either through our Part C funds or through the FLOPA contract with DEC. Just to, I guess, talk about the watershed initiative a little bit. In the first place, this does date back to 2006 with the New York State Tug Hill Commission providing us technical assistance and writing a grant to to apply for a watershed management plan through the Department of State. We were able to get that funding for phase 1 and phase 2, and by 2010, we had completed a watershed management plan. Fortunately, it was done, but unfortunately, it didn't meet a 9-element plan standard, which is the standard that EPA requires for you to be able to apply for federal funding. So in 2016, after meetings with our water quality meeting and other folks on the steering committee, DEC Emily Fell assisted us in getting that 9-element plan together. So then we would qualify for federal funding. So from there, we identified there are some data gaps. We were looking to, the initial watershed management plan was built and prioritized based on the 11-digit HUC, meaning, for example, we had 19 sub-watersheds that are in the total Black River watershed, and it was done to the 11-digit HUC. Unfortunately, all of our grants are related to a 12-digit HUC. For those of you who don't know, HUC meaning hydrologic unit code. So basically, we were looking to take these data gaps and take the original plan and move that to a 12-digit HUC plan. Unfortunately, we were told that would be extremely expensive and costly and not likely that it would be funded. So that is when the districts got together and said, okay, we need to formalize this. We need to come up with our priorities as soil and water conservation districts and put all of our minds together. And that is in 2024 when we formed the Black River Watershed Coalition of Districts. And we had our first meeting in November of 2024. Our mission is a coalition of districts to educate the community about watershed management initiatives and to cooperatively implement conservation within the Black River watershed to improve natural resources. To date, you always have those initial organizational bumps that you have to get through. Fortunately, it was only 5 counties, so it wasn't difficult. We've established an executive committee and standard bylaws, and we are now on our 16th year of annual watershed conference. It's held in June. By the way, the Black River Watershed Conference this year will be held on June 3rd. We've also attended, 6 of us attended the Vermont Rivers and Roads training. I'll explain a little bit about that. I know currently we have the Emergency Stream Intervention program in New York State, especially in response to emergencies. I took a look at this in the Vermont Rivers and Roads training program, and that was basically created when I think it was Hurricane Irene came out. And it was a way of training engineers, contractors, and highways of how to install structures and practices to keep the streams in equilibrium, not a triage approach, but how to approach it in a more steady state equilibrium approach. And so we all attended this Rivers and Roads training and thought it would be a great thing to bring to New York. And we've actually applied for funding through the Ecosystem-Based Management Grant Program to bring that to New York. We did attend, 6 of us last fall. It was very interesting training in Vermont, but we actually did get Vermont to agree that well, they said with public funding, there wouldn't be any cost to share all of that educational information with us. So they would actually, Stacy Pomeroy is the executive director and she's the lead for the program, and said that she would actually come over and do a pilot training for us to kick off our training for New York. So little birdie told me that we may have funding for that. So we'll start planning once we know officially that we have funding to do that. We also sat down and did our watershed needs based on culvert assessment, education, flood monitoring, green infrastructure, looking at the 5 counties and what our needs for each one of these categories for the first 1 to 5 years. Most of them were in the first couple of years. Some of the items were 5 years out. Looking about an inventory of about 2.4 million needed to implement these type projects based on what we have in the watershed. And then we did a working session. Sunita Halaz from the Adirondack Council, actually, she's fantastic facilitator, by the way, if anybody ever wants to utilize her, but she did a prioritization session we held here in 2025 to take a look at what are our priorities within the watershed aside, I guess collectively, what are our priorities? And the additions to the list, the ramp, which many districts watershed coalitions are working on right now, the rural road assessment program. We've also looked at, we've had a lot of issues in terms of, storms. We had significant flooding events, 1 in July and August of 2024 that just annihilated some of our road systems, took out 5 roads, flooded our high school, flooded our parking lot in the hospital, just caused a lot of problems. And in the process, we noticed that some of our highways are not, ready to be, submitting that information to DEC for emergency authorizations immediately. I think they were quite overwhelmed with all that they had to do. So we would like to do utilize an app to be able to collect this information and get that to DEC within that 24 to 48 hours to get those emergency authorizations and move on from there to document for dishes and FEMA how to, things that have gone on in the process of keeping these roads open and safe to the public. Some other topics that we wanted to address are lake browning. Since the waters have cleaned up in the Adirondacks, they're not quite so acidified. The lakes are beginning to brown, which is apparently a more normal condition, but alarming to some folks, similar to what HABs would be, harmful algal blooms. So some of these issues that we want to educate folks on, as well as PFOAs, more work in climate resiliency. We have a lot of open ag land in the Black River Valley and a lot of solar coming in. We want to look at the impact of solar on our ag lands. And then septic systems. We have a lot of tributaries that have freshwater mussels that are actually imperiled, and some of these townships do not have the resources to do the inventory, let alone move these organisms when they have projects, a bridge project, a bridge replacement, what have you. And then we have several dams. One of the reasons that we had 5 roads actually blow out in the town of Watson and New Bremen is there was a dam that was not on the registry, that was not being maintained, and it blew out a pond, which went down Crystal Creek and really exasperated the 7 to 9 inches of rain that we were already having problems with anyway. So dams and dam inventories, even those of ones that are not in DEC's inventory, we want to make a priority. And obviously that's part of the climate resilience. Some of our next steps is to consolidate that strategic planning notes session that we put together, prioritize those sub watersheds and goals so we can come up with collective grant applications, evaluate the water quality data. We did do some sampling when we had data gaps, recognizing some areas that didn't have the water quality data. We'd like to implement the Rivers and Roads educational program in New York. Some of that has to do, we have some technical things that we have to change. For example, when New York State, when we put in a culvert, it has to be 1.25 times the width, the bank full width. Well, Vermont only requires 1 time the bank full width. So there are certain technical changes that need to be made to that program before we can roll it out in New York. We want to seek additional funding sources, obviously, for implementation because we do not have the standardized funding, for example, that the Eastern Finger Lakes has through the Bond Act. And then some up and coming issues. We have a lot of snow in the Black River watershed. We have the Tug Hill. We're looking at some places that had over 270 inches of snow, and that was before January this year. So we have a lot of snow, a lot of winter road management. Our season lasts a little longer. We definitely want to be addressing those issues. And then just general marketing of the Watershed Coalition and looking at events in the future where we can get the word out to folks as a collective watershed coalition. And that is all I have. I just wanted to make note in that Rivers and Roads program up on the left-hand side, you see Sarah Trick from Jefferson County. We actually went out and did electrofishing as part of that Rivers and Roads program. So, basically looking at, what do we actually have in the stream? Sometimes even in a 3-foot wide stream, you can get little brook trout that nobody would ever think that they would be in there. But I think it's a kind of seeing is believing. There's a reason we should do these culvert assessments, and whatnot to, I guess, to get everybody to recognize the importance of improving fish passage. At this point, does anybody have any questions?
I guess no questions, Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing those slides today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we're on the same line. Watershed Restoration Program number, I assume the Watershed Coalition.
Slide, we want you to just kind of grab it.
Thank you.
Yes.
As Bethany is pulling up my slides, I want to thank her and Ryan Cunningham for the opportunity to speak about some watershed coalitions that are structured very differently and are certainly at different levels of implementation. My name is Caitlin Stewart. I'm the manager for Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District. And over the last 5 years, I have served as president and/or secretary for the Upper Hudson River Watershed Coalition, the Mohawk River Watershed Coalition, and the St. Lawrence River Watershed Partnership. I'm a dog mom. The left is my senior boy Artemis, and the right is my chaos box, that's Hurricane. And winter is our favorite season. I'm mourning winter right now. Thank you, Bethany.
Yeah.
our roadmap for today, I'm going to go over the mission statements for those 3 watershed coalitions, as well as the watershed revitalization or management plans, and then finally wrap up with the differences in our level of project implementation. Oh, no, that's it. Okay. Hopefully I should be able to just advance. Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay. Maybe I didn't add the animations to all slides. Just click them on. Maybe try exiting full screen and then see if the next slide is available. This one? Perfect, yes, perfect. Sorry about that. Oh, that's okay. Bethany, it was probably my fault, and I probably just, I forgot to animate all of them. The Mohawk River Watershed Coalition. Our mission statement is to bring community members together to educate about watershed management and the importance of environmental and economic initiatives. And this coalition includes 14 soil and water conservation districts. Our watershed management plan, the WMP, was published and approved by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation in 2015. And this has been our guiding document for best management practice implementation throughout the watershed. Some key goals, 7 of them are listed on our screen. They include to promote flood hazard risk reduction and enhanced flood resiliency, as well as promote agriculture and other working landscapes. Throughout my presidency, we worked very closely with DEC to finalize the Mohawk River Basin Action Agenda's contract. And we were working with Andrea Konine and Kathy Krajnowski. And unfortunately, Kathy retired just a couple of months before this contract came to fruition. But we did email her to tell her the good news. This is a 5-year contract between the DEC and all of the soil and water conservation districts within the Mohawk River Watershed Coalition. And specifically, we are working to implement objectives that are listed in the DEC's action agenda. Some of those, actually all of those objectives include NAC assessments, so the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative assessments, going out into the streams and the rivers and taking data on culverts, seeing which ones are undersized, and then taking an inventory on what culverts need to be correctly sized. This will allow for aquatic organism passage. Another objective is roadway and ditch trainings, assessments, and remediation. Specifically, things like hydroseeding, check dams, maybe thinking out of the box, and instead of hard armoring our roadsides, putting in some green infrastructure to stabilize that soil and preventing it from polluting our waterways. Invasive species is another key priority area, inventorying our roadsides for invasive plants, as well as mitigating those plants. A lot of conservation district staff have their certifications for pesticide treatments. So we can actually treat things like Japanese knotweed or Phragmites, getting those plants out of the landscape and allowing our native plants to regenerate.
And finally, stream sediment and debris management. Pete Nichols from Schoharie County Soil and Water is a whiz with writing these management plans. So he is taking up this portion of implementing the action agenda, and he is teaching other conservation district staff how to write these stream sediment and debris management plans and really assist our municipalities with water quality. Shifting gears from the Mohawk to the Upper Hudson River Watershed Coalition. The mission is to provide a coordinated effort to improve water quality and other natural resources through planning and project management. The Upper Hudson includes 7 soil and water conservation districts. We also have 2 other voting members, the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, as well as the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. In 2020, just on the cusp of COVID, our watershed revitalization plan was finalized. And some key goals include assisting ag practices to promote the creation of AIM, the Agricultural Environmental Management Plans, and implementation of best management practices. This really shows the partnership between conservation districts and the state committee. We put AIM right into our watershed management plan as a priority. Another goal is to establish a proactive partnership between local, county, state, and federal partners. So going from a very localized lens view all the way up to the federal level. Partnerships make it possible. So how do we get conservation on the ground? The Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board wrote and administered 2 DEC Water Quality Improvement Program grants on the Watershed Coalition's behalf. We were able to implement $285,200 of hydro seeding, check dams, and other green infrastructure throughout the watershed. This is very successful, and it was all conservation district staff on deck to implement this grant. We got a lot of great hydro seeding done throughout the watershed, and it was that partnership with regional planning that really allowed us to get the work done, because we didn't have to worry about administering the grant. Someone else was doing that for districts. And finally, transitioning to the St. Lawrence River Watershed Project, I want to give a shout out to Chastity Miller. She served as president and was truly the brainchild of SLRP. She saw the need, the lack of a watershed coalition in the St. Lawrence River Watershed. And as Chaz can only do, she did something about it. SLRP's mission is to encourage, you're fine. You're fine. SLRP's mission is to encourage watershed partnerships and the implementation of conservation projects that promote, enhance, and protect natural resources and water quality. SLRP includes 8 conservation districts and is also comprised of non-voting members that have an interest within the watershed. In 2020, we published a watershed revitalization plan, and some key goals include resolving issues of legacy contamination and atmospheric deposition. So getting ahead of things like PFOS and PFAS and putting that verbiage in our WRP. And also another goal was to prepare for emerging issues and threats, not only looking at what's happening now, but to make sure that we have funding to prepare for whatever may be coming down the pike. SLRP continues to seek funding to implement our watershed revitalization plan. We considered applying for ecosystem-based management, but thought that funding source would be better sought and more competitive if the individual districts sought funding versus the entire watershed coalition. We certainly have a lot of water quality needs in the watershed, and we will develop a needs assessment, get some dollar amounts for our priorities, and then see what shakes out for funding in the future. What questions do you have for me?
Caitlin, was that the St. Lawrence one called revitalization because that one that area was that much worse shape versus the other ones that were all management plan on the Mohawk and Upper
So
Hudson?
that's a great question. I don't know the difference between a management for a revitalization plan. I will find out for you.
Okay, thanks.
Great question.
Question, you're really committed to the terminology SLRP, right? We were working with a planner last week or the week before, and I happened to stumble upon this. I read every single word on every single page. It was so well done. It's really great. These watershed plans are so informative and really show you all the hawks and the codes and everything that's going on. So super good job.
We contracted with Ecologic for the St. Lawrence Watershed Revitalization Plan, and Liz Moraine did a knockout job. Yes.
And it's called that plan because it was local waterfront revitalization funding. And the watershed is too large to really do a 9-element plan. It has to be broken up smaller because the modeling just cannot, the data's not there and the modeling can't be done across that large of a watershed area. And so we had LWRP funding to get us that far and at least get something that we could use as a planning tool. So, yeah, Liz did a fabulous job. She's retired, unfortunately. Nope, she retired. Officially, she is done. She retired.
Hi, everybody. Let me just start sharing. All right, how's it looking?
We're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it. Great, great.
It looks great.
Let me try again. Oh, it's connecting. Let me just get, stop my video.
As a backup, Alice, oh, there it goes. Never mind. That's good.
We lost audio, Sue?
All right, how are we doing now?
Looks good, sounds good.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm Alice Halloran, District Manager at Essex County Soil and Water, also president of QUICNY, which is the Champlain Watershed Improvement Coalition of New York. I'm going to talk a little bit about QUICNY's history. I'm going to call it QUICNY the whole time because that's what we call it. And I'll highlight some of our accomplishments over the years and then talk about where we are now. So the Lake Champlain Basin in New York State covers part of 5 counties. So Clinton, Essex, Franklin, Warren, and Washington. There are 6 major tribs: the Chazy, Saranac, Au Sable, Beauquet, Lachute, and Medowee. And according to the DEC, approximately 75% of the watershed is forested. Then we've got 8 to 9% agriculture, up to 14% developed, and then 2% wetlands. A large portion of it is in the Adirondack Park, so we fall under that set of regulations and concerns, and we have some really steep areas that have experienced a lot of major flooding and erosion. So Quickney started in around 2001, meeting as a loose affiliation of people they call themselves the Lake Champlain Group. It was soil and water conservation districts, water quality coordinating committees, and some other partners that were involved in those early meetings. And then in 2002 is when the EPA approved the joint New York and Vermont TMDL for Lake Champlain to address phosphorus loading. And the next year, Quickney became more official. The bylaws were created. They filed for the 501c3, became a nonprofit conservation organization, and solidified the makeup of the board of directors, which is a little different than some of the other coalitions that have spoken today. We have 11 members on our board, 5 from each of the conservation districts, 1 from the Water Quality Coordinating Committee in each county, and then someone from the Lake Champlain and Lake George Regional Planning Board. And our water quality coordinating committees are run by the district. So right now, 3 out of those 5 are actually district employees. So we're still district heavy and, basically run by the districts. We also have a lot of important partners who help us attend the meetings and weigh in and have helped us move forward a lot of projects and programs over the years. So I don't know as much about the early years, but I know in 2007, Quickney was awarded $1 million in EPA funding to address phosphorus and do some implementation projects. And in that year, they also got some coordinator funding. I'm not exactly sure where that came from. So they had a coordinator in 2007 that was supposed to ensure that they had continued funding to keep that position moving forward, but ended up phasing out that position. They ran out of funding for that in 2013. I'm going to highlight some of the things that have been done, but Quickney's done a lot over the years. I'll just highlight some of the bigger things that have happened. In 2012, they completed the Lake Champlain roadside erosion assessment and inventory, basically looking throughout the entire watershed at the roadsides, looking at projects that need to be done, hundreds of projects, listing potential costs and solutions to those projects. And in doing so, they recognized the need for guidance for roadside best management practices, just seeing like how things were being done, realizing that there needed to be some more guidance in that area. So the Rural Roads Active Management Program was done, and that was similarly to what Nichelle said, that was kind of modeled after some Vermont stuff. So a guidance manual was put together, as well as a field guide. A bunch of educational events for some of the highway departments and others were held to do some guidance. And then this spurred on the actual implementation of the project. So there have been 3 phases of funding to actually implement some of the projects in the manual. And I think on the previous slide, I also mentioned that that was updated. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so anyway, 3 phases of implementation of this roadside erosion prevention and control and stuff. And right now we're in the 3rd phase of that. Most of that should be happening this year. We've also done some agricultural programming. We just finished a 3-year cover crop program. We've worked with some farms to do equipment upgrades. And we currently have a small agricultural engineering grant through the Lake Champlain Basin Program, having noticed that as a bottleneck for getting some of our ag programs or ag projects to move forward. More recently, the Lake Champlain non-point source pollution subwatershed assessment and management plan was completed. And this prioritized some of the subwatersheds for heavier phosphorus loading and the need for reduction in those areas. And it also identified a lot of projects and programs to be implemented throughout the watershed. A lot of partners weighed in on that, and so that's another guidance document. We have a lot of guidance documents for the region. A lot of outreach and education events have been held through Quickney. We have some different funding sources we've used. The Lake Champlain Basin Program, which has been around since the early 90s, gets a lot of federal funding that's then dispersed throughout the watershed in New York and Vermont. So we've utilized that for a lot of things. Some septic maintenance workshops, resiliency training, including emergency stream intervention, NAC trainings, and some of those ramp trainings I talked about. And one of our big events that we hold every year is the North Country Stormwater Trade Show and Conference, which showcases best management practices, projects that have happened, showcases some innovative products to use. And there's usually at least like 150 or more engineers and other professionals that attend this. They can get training credits, continuing education credits. And we held our 20th annual in 2025. That's been a really successful event for us. So save the date for our 2026 trade show on October 20th. It's in Queensbury. We've held some community events over the year, and this year was our first time co-hosting World Water Day with the Lake Champlain Basin Program. And that was held in Plattsburgh at the Champlain Center Mall. In March, it was really successful, brought in a lot of people, and it was a great opportunity to interact with the public and educate them on water quality information. There we go. So in 2022, we got some funding from the Basin Program to put together a 5-year strategic plan. We identified some priority categories, and one of the main outcomes of this was the need for a coordinator. Since Quickney seemed to be doing more and more and applying for grants, doing things regionally together, it was a lot on the districts, and having somebody to administer a lot of that was a recognized need. We also had, kind of outlined some goals really succinctly, and improve some of the tools that we're using. One of the things we recognized is that, we've been around for 20-something years, and the people who first started Quickney aren't here today. So we designated a historian role, and we've gotten a lot of that history down so that we don't lose, a lot of our accomplishments, so we can keep building on those and recognize what we've done in the past. Hopefully also learn from our mistakes. And we also added a project process reviewer, because a lot of times when funding comes out or we get excited, we sort of, get off track of what our main goals are. So just thinking strategically about the actions that we're taking and the projects that we're taking on to ensure that they match our plan and our goals. So we currently have about 6 or so grants and funding contracts happening. We have the capacity grant for a coordinator, which we ended up getting. And so we should have a coordinator starting in the next month or so. We're, like I said, working on phase 3 of our roadside erosion projects. We have an organizational support grant to update our website and logo. We have the ag engineering grant. We have an education grant. And then we've just recently been working with Ag and Markets and DEC on a scope of work for some implementation funding that will hopefully be coming through soon, so we can start doing some more implementation on all of these projects and our priority project list that we've created through the capacity grant. Like the Eastern Finger Lakes, we've been working with Tyler on the reporting tool, and hopefully they're going to work out all the kinks for us so that will go smoothly as we start working on that. And we have a pretty tight group, it's 5 counties, so we're really cohesive and consistent. We've been working together for a while, so we're really looking forward to getting the coordinator on board. We did have a coordinator for a little bit, but that didn't work out. So now we're getting our second coordinator and getting the implementation funding going. And that's about where we are with Quickney. Thank you for having me. And does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so they do something similar in Vermont with the Watershed Coalition.
I don't actually know that. Vermont's structured a little bit differently than we are, so I don't actually know.
I'm just curious if they were doing anything over there that was, along the same lines or.
Collaboration and how deep collaboration was. I know that the basin program is pretty closely involved with Vermont DEC, and then New York DEC will kind of parallel those efforts. They try to have similar programs so you can kind of share those things across the lake. But the conservation districts are regional; they're not by county over there.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost a coalition because of how it's set up. It's like a regional by
Like the Baltimore Conservation District.
Yeah. So it's structured a little differently, but they do share a lot of ideas across watersheds and state lines. So.
Yeah, we're kind of connected by the Lake Champlain Basin program. And so we have the Vermont, there's the Vermont Citizens Advisory Group and the New York. And so there's some communication and idea sharing, like Brian said.
State funding in Vermont is not, at the level it is in New York.
Well, I guess that's what I'm kind
Yeah,
of
the districts.
curious about is whether all things were somewhat equal or whether.
Districts and not-for-profits really take advantage of the Lake Champlain Basin Program funding in Vermont side because it's really a large portion of the budget. Where New York on this side, there's a lot more state support. So.
When they attend meetings over here, their eyes are pretty wide when they see the funding for all these programs. So, yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting, I think, from the, the different watersheds, and land use within the coalitions, particularly when you get up around the Adirondacks and the Champlain and the St. Lawrence. I think that, I'm guessing that presents some challenges because of the, because of the different land uses in the area. But very interesting. Any other questions for us? If not, thank you all. We were up to the Clean Water Planning and DEC Coalition Partnership with Tony, I'll take a stab at this, Giacomo.
Really good.
Well, my father had to have a destroying last name. I don't want to follow in his footsteps.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, thanks so much for having me here at DEC offices. I'm very unique to me. My name is Tony Giacomo. A lot of you know me. For those who don't, I'm a research scientist and section chief for DEC's Division of Water at Albany. I split time between Syracuse and Albany offices. I came up to the DEC starting in 2017 in the Finger Lakes Watershed Program, but now I oversee the PMDL and Island Plan programs and 5 of the watershed programs, which includes many of the coalitions. I'm going to speak in pretty broad terms, and part of the presentation I gave last fall, so I did add some new stuff because of some updates and publications of some website material that we've actually got through this morning. So it's kind of new. It's kind of might be rough as that transition between the slides and website. Anyways, so obviously DEC partners with coalitions in many ways. We've heard about some of those so far today. So I'm going to walk you through how and why we do that and some of the advantages that DEC get from new folks on the ground with planning and implementing our clean water. So this is the DEC Division of Waters at COW. We call this the water wheel. This is kind of the cycle of how we collect data through monitoring, assess our water bodies, plan and manage for water quality or other issues. Implement those plans either through non-form source implementation or permitting strategies. We're not talking about permitting so much today, or through compliance and enforcement through various regulatory mechanisms. What I have highlighted with that box is, these are the 2 or 3 areas where the Division of Water and ag market, soil and water conservation districts and coalitions can align in work and funding for watershed management to meet our various goals. Clean water plans or CWPs, there's a lot of acronyms, so I'll try to remember through them. We have many different types, and I'll show you the websites that have been updated recently. In New York, there are total maximum daily loads or advanced restoration plans. That's on the left-hand side. Those are plans that we develop and then need approval by EPA. They're usually impaired water bodies, impaired being not meeting the water quality standards for various pollutants. TMDLs are led by New York State and developed. They're a regulatory plan to meet our Clean Water Act review requirements, and they can be built to be protective or restorative. Advanced restoration plans are also led by New York. It stands for Alternative Restoration Approach. It's like a 9E or like a 9-element plan, except it's kind of a step where you can develop such a plan, implement it, and hopefully delay or not need a TMDL down the road, just because TMDLs are very long and lengthy process. We have other plans in New York State, 9-element plan or 9Es you might be familiar with. Those are a little different. Those are usually led by the community and developed locally. They're generally used to be protective of watersheds or water bodies. And EPA does not approve those plans. New York State approves those plans. So it's a little bit different mechanism. Oh, I should have said, it is up top and upper right corners, driven by CALM and Vision. CALM is New York State's Consolidated Assessment and Listing Methodology. It's online. It's a PDF framework online to start how the DEC collects data, uses that data to evaluate whether or not water bodies need best uses through analyzing the data against water bodies. And Vision, that's not an acronym. We're going to talk a little bit more about Vision. One thing to keep in mind, no matter which plan we're kind of talking about here, I use them generally. They usually have similar goals and frameworks. They're usually designed around a specific pollutant that needs to be reduced to meet water quality goals and targets. So this is the new update, which I'm very excited that this is final. That actually should say 2026, not to give away how long it's taken to get. I'll catch that on the next version of the slide deck. The vision approach is it's a name for a framework development that EPA recommends that each state develops so that they can kind of efficiently organize and prioritize water bodies for clean water plan development. Usually TMDLs and ARPs, but can include protection plans as well. So DEC's first version of Vision was in 2015. That version is still online, but we just today gotten the 2026 to 32 Vision online. So it's glad to have that done. And what the Vision approach does is it incorporates guidance from EPA how to develop and prioritize water bodies for clean water plan development. EPA has new goals that they published in 2022 with cross-cutting focus areas. We'll go through those, and we'll go through the steps on TMDLs and ARP development. It does include some of these goals on how water bodies should be prioritized for protection. New York, we still kind of rely on community-led initiatives in that regard, although we're thinking through ways to help, inform through education and outreach which water bodies we feel could be prioritized for protection. So there's a quiz before lunch, and I know that I'm the only one standing between us and lunch, so I'll give you 30 seconds to read. No, I'm not going to do that. There are 6 goals: prioritization of planning, restoration, protection, data analysis, and partnerships. I highlighted the bold words from each goal, so you kind of get a flavor for what the EPA recommends for each of those goals. And the yellow box, again, because we're kind of in the partnerships and coalitions theme today, that kind of partnerships goal is one that the EPA specifically calls out. And obviously it's one that the DEC takes very, we take a lot of stock in that one, given our level of interaction with ag markets and districts and coalitions that we interact with or fund directly. So meaningfully communicates and collaborates with other government programs and non-government stakeholders is essentially what we do with our interactions with you all coalitions. This is kind of a nerdy diagram, but I think it's helpful. The column, we talked about that earlier. It's a method to produce this integrated report, IR. DEC is on the hook to evaluate the water quality status of all the waters in New York State every 2 years, which we then submit that report, that 305B report to EPA. And so there are multiple categories. Categories 1 through 4 means that uses are supported, some uses are supported, unassessed, or it might be impaired water, but a TMDL is required for whatever reason. Those are all candidates for protection plans in New York State. And then the other kind of pink highlighted box, category 5, are that TMDL and advanced restoration plan that are candidates for restoration. And they are the ones that make it on the list of impaired waters that the US. So going through the goals very quickly, there's a planning and prioritization goal in New York. We still have total phosphorus and effects such as low dissolved oxygen and pathogens as our primary pollutants in the next round revision. They make up roughly half of the over 1,000 water quality impairments on the 303 list. So big push to control for phosphorus. Although we do note and want to kind of get those co-benefits, reductions in nitrogen, reduction in sediments, right, to take advantage of those things. And like I said, we get there either through protection or restoration through our planning. The restoration goal for TMDLs and ARPs, 4 basic steps. I don't get into the specific details of how this gets done, but essentially you define your pollutant. We have a list of priority factors that we consider. We have feasibility factors that we increase. And then we define which water bodies that we can handle and prioritize for TMDLs and ARPs. As you imagine, this is critical for us, given the number of water bodies that are impaired for a pollutant like phosphorus. We obviously can't do 1,000 TMDLs in 2 years to meet our 303 requirements. And that's so that's why we developed the vision frame. So again, I don't have how we rank and how we score, but the priority factors we kind of look at when picking which water bodies are next on the list to do TMDLs are: is it public water supply? Does the public have access? DJ and DAC communities, are there harmful lagoons? Are there other uses that are impaired? So not just drinking water, but is it impaired for swimming? Is it impaired for fishing? Is it impaired for lots of things? And are there more than one priority pollutants in the water body? So if it has a phosphorus and pathogen and dissolved oxygen impairment, we obviously can kind of tackle a bunch with one plan rather than do separate plans. Feasibility, this is not new, but we kind of rethought how we prioritize based on the availability of data, the availability of modeling, whether the water bodies are connected to other water bodies, kind of those co-benefits that we want to tackle, and how ready is a water body to do the model. And one of the things that we have to submit a list every year of the water bodies that we're going to do TMDLs for. And as you can imagine, tackling all these bullets takes a lot more than 2 years. And that's just to kind of set up and develop the plan, let alone write it, publish it, and get it off the approval list. So we're trying to figure out ways to make sure that we can commit to doing plans that we can actually achieve in the timeframe that we're required to. Easier said than done, but that's cool. The last 3 goals I put onto one slide. Again, protection. We've got protection framework available. Data and analysis. It's asking for how we communicate data in water plans, where we get our data from, documenting whether the data is sufficient quality to use for various steps in plan development. And again, they make a big deal out of that partnerships goal, which I highlighted. There are cross-cutting focus areas. There are 4. 1 second. EJ, climate change, tribal water quality program development, and again, program capacity building. And I've highlighted the box there again on implementation. And we at the DDC, kind of regard that program capacity building both as internal and external, which is why we continue to support, coalition development for capacity. Because a lot of our plans at this point, we take care of the regulatory pieces through the mechanisms that we have, but a lot of it's not on source driven in a lot of these plans. So we need folks on the ground doing implementation and non-public source realm to meet our planning goals. I think I've said this, but I'll just note that, and that's how coalitions and partnerships help us implement our plans. So in many of our watersheds, as an example, 75% of phosphorus sources come from non-point source areas, not regulated source areas. So we need to keep pushing and building that local capacity to use those things. And this is our watershed coalitions page. I do realize by making this publicly known, you'll find problems with the coalitions page. I have some myself. You can call Bethany's home line directly. Let me know. We constantly get, big sites, so we have to make adjustments. As an example, the Finger Lakes coalition page is not on there linking to that. And again, it's all part of the process. Plan, implement, evaluate, make changes, right? That's the adaptive management spiral. And we, DDC, appreciate our partners at not just the planning, but the implementation and letting us know how we're doing it through reaching our goals across our many watersheds. I think that's it. And we're gonna try the website. And I think these mounts touch pad if I break them. So on our clean water planning page, this largely looks the same from what you've seen, although it does link to the new vision page, which is where it's like an hour ago that it published. So this is you'll probably find some issues here too. It talks about plans. It talks about key features of the plans. You can use these as you communicate with your constituents. If you identify a tone type particularly helpful for you. The summaries here, summary to the outreach materials, which will be being updated. NBLs and the rest are all specified. One nice thing that I'm, well, not one, but one of the things I'm particularly proud of is we brainstormed that the original page, if you recall, was just sort of bucketed by plan type. It wasn't overly easy to use or user friendly. So what we did was we went through and we bucketed them by the 17 major basins. And so now if you're in the Delaware River watershed, you can go to that accordion and pull up all the plans that exist, either TMDLs, ARPs, and RNL plans to communicate or see what the recommendations are there for implementation.
I'm glad you picked on us because we want to fill that map in so you have another coalition to work on.
Susquehanna River watershed, obviously Chesapeake Bay TMDL. Anyways, up and down the line, Long Island Sound, right? So I think that's a much easier format for people to get a handle on regionally to understand where the plans are and what they're saying. So that's that one. And then links to the vision approach, which is here, our planning management site. It goes through in detail with a very quick high overview of vision that I gave you. Again, it brings down these goals, and you can see the partnership goals here, which lists, doesn't commit to specific work. All of our federal, state, and local partners that are helping us develop this. So this is brand new. I haven't had a chance to look at these yet, but it does give our progress on clean water planning, which is a nice kind of visual of our many clean water plans that have been completed. The area of the state that is covered under a clean water plan, and the number of communities that are helped through completion and implementation. So have a read through. We'll be doing the same, and I've asked my team to do the same. Thank you very much again for giving me the time to speak to me today.
Preston Giacomo. Yeah, I think it does.
Good job, with the president.
I don't look at the spelling, I'm okay.
It's the letters that.
Yeah. All right, are we to break?
Yeah. So for folks on the line, we're gonna break for lunch and we will resume at 1 o'clock.
All right, we're going in the order again.
All those letters. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us to speak about our forestry team and our programs with the Upper Susquehanna Coalition. Next slide. I don't know anything about the graphics or things that'll pop up. Sorry. Yes. As you may know, the Chesapeake Bay has a TMDL, so thank you, Tony, for outlining all of those different types of plans prior to me speaking. In response to the TMDL, New York has developed a watershed implementation plan. Within that watershed implementation plan are lots and lots of acreage goals for reforestation across the landscape. Not just buffers, like I'm showing here with this graphic, but also for ag land planting and urban planting as well. So what you're seeing here in this graphic just shows our progress over time. To date, we're at about 3,100 acres of riparian forest buffer implemented, with another 2,500 yet to go to reach our goal in the watershed implementation plan, specifically for buffers, not for upland or urban. You can go to the next slide. Just to highlight a little bit of the resources that are out there, because we're connected to the Chesapeake Bay has a forestry work group, and it actually has like a lot of capacity to move forward forestry goals within the bay. We have a really great network. We can rely on each other. We talk through goals and how to meet them. And this just shows that we have ag land planting that we've completed. We've only really started getting at it, so we only have 217 acres completed so far. But this all is to say that with increased capacity and increased funding, we really can start hitting those goals. And if you're in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, there are these really nice worksheets about understanding your canopy cover within your watershed. Even if your county is just touching the watershed, the Forest Service developed these worksheets for you as well. And then last, I will say that the watershed agreement has been revised, has been adopted. It's somewhere there in limbo. And with that revised watershed agreement for the Chesapeake Bay, there have been additional goals added, not just to restore forests, but also to protect forests. So we now have a goal of protecting, maintaining, managing 9 million acres of forest land. Yep, by 2040. So this is a great opportunity for us with the coalition to partner with land trusts, other types of organizations, to engage with landowners that we don't typically do as soil and water conservation districts, at least in the southern tier, where we're often engaging with ag landowners. Next slide. So the Watershed Forestry Team, we've recently changed our name to be all encompassing of the forestry that we do across the watershed. Before we were just the buffer team, and we still have a buffer committee, and we're a group of soil and water conservation district employees that meet to talk specifically about buffers and moving the line on buffer implementation and keeping buffers implemented. But we also have a watershed forestry task force, And that's about 30 folks that attend that, many of whom are in the room here. We have at least 7 different agencies and about 10 to 15 different water conservation districts that attend those quarterly meetings. We get a lot done. They're usually really informative meetings. I think we all come out of there learning something. We have 3 full-time USC staff. That's me, and next to me in that image there is Rainier. He manages our Trees for Tributaries program and some other programs that require the purchasing and forward contracting of plant stock. And Ava, who's not shown there, but she will be on the next slide, is our forest stewardship coordinator. So between the 3 of us, we kind of manage an all-encompassing forest program where we can plan, implement, and steward forest lands. All soil and water conservation district staff provide technical assistance for our reforestation program. And then, of course, we have a ton of partners that we help facilitate their programs, like with CREP or with some of the ag and markets programs. And then last but not least, I'd like to mention our seasonal forest stewards, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. This year, we're hiring 20 interns to steward lands around the watershed. Next slide. There's our support staff, Rainier, Ava, and then we just have a new hire on to help us plant all the trees that we've gotten. Buster, he's really helping out, trying to step in and take more of a Trees for Tribs coordinator role while Rainier spends more time on planning. Next slide. Okay, so this is kind of going to set the stage for what the rest of the presentation is going to inform you about. We have implementation programs. I'll talk about Trees for Tribs and our USC water quality program. I'll talk about our NRCS CREP agreement, where we fund staff capacity, but also facilitate that CREP program in general. Permanent protection of our natural resources, our forest stewardship program, our most recent core grant, and then some upcoming funding that we have to really project us pretty well for the next couple of years for the implementation. Next slide. So Trees for Tributary, who's heard of Trees for Tributaries? Okay, great. I don't think that this is a DEC funded program this year, but Trees for Tributaries has in the past been funded through DEC. And we essentially call it a Say Yes program. If a landowner has a water body and they want trees, we say yes. And we usually get other projects through them, or we get volunteer help. You know, it's really small projects. They average in 1 acre and 200 plants per project, but we implement 5,000 trees per season through this program, 60 acres of buffer in a year, just with Trees for Tributaries. So really small projects, but it's intense work because you have maybe 60 small projects throughout the watershed. Something worth mentioning here too is because this program we started this in 2015, and because it's just such a consistent program, districts are always wanting stock for projects. We've been able to get a forward grow for this project, which was a recommendation that came to us from the Nature Conservancy. They've been doing all sorts of studies in New York State about how can you get more trees on the ground? How can we engage with more partners? What do we need to do? One of their recommendations was to work more closely with your nurseries so that you can get forward grows. So we have a 2-year forward grow for Trees for Tributaries, which essentially means that we know we are getting this stock of this size at this time. Next slide. So next is our USC water quality program. This increases the implementation of buffers, wetlands, stream corridor rehabilitation, and afforestation. Something that's not there, and I don't know why, is grazing. We get a lot of grazing with our USC water quality program. And in fact, all the federal funding that we list there that comes in, that's what funds our afforestation. The buffers and the upland projects are funded with federal funding, whereas when we also are implementing grazing, that's usually the state. You're coming in, and so we're able to match those funds in a federal grant by saying, but we're doing grazing, but we're also getting all of this afforestation. And so that's how we match up those funds to be able to implement both of those types of practices. I'll also mention that we're starting to get a little bit of private funding here and there for our afforestation initiatives. Arbor Day Foundation, we treat as private. And there's another organization called One Tree Planted that will engage with us sometimes, but they are strictly for stock. Nobody wants to fund labor or coordination or anything like that. Everyone wants to just fund trees and that's it. So we get a little funding there. All of these projects are facilitated through our districts and partners. Next slide. Contractor assistance. So about 2017 was when we started engaging with planting contractors. This is the way. Volunteers can implement 60 acres of buffer. That's great. It's a lot of work to get all those volunteers and to get 60 acres on the ground. So the only way we saw to get mass amounts of plants on the ground was to start engaging with contractors. So we have 3 contractors that we'll regularly work with. They're all out of Virginia and Pennsylvania. There's no local contractors who do widespread, large-scale plantings. If you know of them, I'd love to talk to them, but I don't know of them, so I don't think they exist. But just an overall perspective, and this includes trees for tributaries, the average size of our project is 4 acres. That's because it's buffer. We've been focusing on buffers for so long. That's why it's so small. So you're bouncing around 4-acre projects, 8 acres, 2 acres, but when you get a contractor up here, so like for this spring, we're implementing, let's say 60 acres, they're gonna have that done in 5 days. So we can really schedule them quickly when we have all of our projects lined up in a nice little bundle. They know where they are, we know where they are, we have coordinated staff to be on site with them, and we can bang them right out really quick. I also want to point out here the big blip in fall of 2024. As you may recall, we were getting some funding that was going to really start in spring of 2025. But right before that, we were ramping up with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant that was specifically for afforestation. That's all it was for. And so we were really ramping up. You even see the fall and spring before then are pretty high as well. We were getting afforestation across the watershed, large scale projects, not just buffers. We had also hired more staff, so more planning, more projects in the pipe. Spring, we were going to implement, you can actually go to the next slide, and I think I have a little bit more of this here. So spring of 25, we were going to implement as many as we did in fall of 24, but I forget the name of the funding that got taken away and then sort of given back. The federal funding.
Climate Smart Commodities.
Thank you, Climate Smart Commodities, in partnership with.
I liked how you described that. That's pretty much it.
So we had partnered with the Nature Conservancy and we had shifted a lot of staff capacity to planning large upland afforestation projects. And we had a whole bunch that were going to go in spring 25 using bare root stock. They would be really cost effective, but then they were all sort of, all of that funding was really taken away and from ag and markets too. So a bunch of our projects fell through and we've kind of been reeling a little bit since. A small recovery here in spring of 26. I also just want to show, or I want to emphasize that this is the number of trees and shrubs, not just trees. So I know that a lot of state programs, because of the CLCPA, are very focused on trees, but we implement shrubs also. Shrubs are actually a really big selling point for landowners. They are pollinator habitat and bird habitat, and landowners love the shrubs. Also for water quality, they're really great because they have that, not super deep, shallow rooted woody plants. They really intercept a lot of groundwater, especially stormwater flow. So we love implementing shrubs as well. Next slide. And here you can kind of see a little bit. So I took about 30% off in each one of those graphics there to show how many trees, which would be the left bar would be trees. No, that's trees and shrubs. And then the right bar is just trees. So still in 2024, we were implementing over 44,000 trees. In 2025, we implemented over 21,000 trees. Next slide, please. So where have we been working? On the right, you'll see we're starting to work more in the urban areas, especially as they are riparian. And then on the left, you see, of course, we're still working on implementing riparian forest buffers. Up until a few days ago, we didn't really have funding to work anywhere else. So we're still sticking to the riparian area. And then you can go to the next slide. Maybe I'll have you go back a little bit too, but this is good now. And this is an area that's a super great area for some state programs. Is this ag or is this non-ag? Really difficult sometimes. I mean, does anybody want to take a stab at what you think that may be? It's about 3 acres of an 11-acre plot. The guy mows it. He doesn't want to mow it. It used to be ag 7-8 years ago, but it hasn't been used for active ag since, and therefore it doesn't qualify for some programs that currently exist. So this is a guy that's had a plan for a solid 3 years now that we just haven't been able to have funding for. So if you could just go back one, please, Bethany. So just to take a look at the table up there of where we've really been working and what we've been implementing. Riparian forest buffer on pasture and crop, those are big numbers. Then on fallow fields, that's where we get less funding, is non-ag, fallow. That's like a gray area for a lot of folks, and we haven't been able to really capitalize a lot there. Ag land, tree planting, that's upland. That's in another situation that we come across all the time, like that next image. We could really get a lot of that. Otsego County, Shenango County, there's a lot of retired ag where people are just mowing those fields. Or it's being overcome with red ripper and honeysuckle and buckthorn. So a lot of opportunity there. And then we're just starting to get more and more into the urban buffers, but those trickle in really slowly because they're always so small. So you can skip ahead too, please. Yep, so this just shows where we work. It looks like a lot of Tioga and Portland County there. I mean, that makes sense. And in Binghamton, right around the city, we get a ton of parks in Binghamton and Broome County in general. Shenango County has a ton of opportunity for that old ag land that doesn't necessarily have riparian opportunity, but it's just upland, it's fallow, it's sitting there. And I would say the same for Otsego County, which is all the way to the right. Although it looks like there's a lot of dots there, I think that whole county could be covered with dots with the way that you drive around and see the opportunity. Just to point out all the way to the left with Steuben County, that actually on the Nature Conservancy's document that they produced about available lands in New York State, Steuben County actually has some of the lowest available lands because it is highly agriculture and it's active agriculture in contrast to Otsego County. Next slide, please. So I always get asked, what are we planting? So I'm gonna show you. This is what we're planting, the top 5 of our trees and shrubs. Obviously, they are riparian plants, but as we shift to more upland, we're gonna have different upland plants that we're gonna be planting. I would assume it'd be more dominated by oaks, but we'll see what we come up with and what the soil tells us. But right now, sycamore is our #1, river birch, red maple, silver maple, and swamp white oak. Next slide. And that's what we get our forward grow. I mean, it's essentially, we have 30 plus species in our forward grow, but the vast majority of them were those top 10.
Lydia, where are the nurseries that you're working with? Are they in New York State or are they?
The one that provides us our stock for our forward grow is in New York State. Caveat.
Okay.
They are a very big nursery and they don't have a lot of space and they don't have the equipment to pot up the plants.
Okay.
So they collect the seed in New York State they send the seed to Georgia where their plant is, and they use their machine. It's like a ready root fiber cell machine that they use. So they pot them up in Georgia, sprout them in Georgia, and then send them back to New York to be cared for here. So it is New York seed stock, potted up in Georgia and brought back here. It's cheaper to do that over and over than it is to buy the equipment in New York to actually pop the plants up.
Wow.
Yeah, you should Google the Ready Root fiber cell technology equipment. I mean, lots of different sizes, couple $100,000 to do it at a pretty big scale.
Yeah.
Great, ready.
Actually, yeah, can we get some more information on that? How many people is the best, or is there?
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
and then you have to contact, the folks that make this stuff.
Yeah.
And they have to ship it over, so I don't know how much that costs, because it's not made in the USA.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's made in England. Yeah. So another way I'm kind of building the story of, we're focusing on riparian areas, we have staff capacity, but staff capacity isn't just taken up by riparian projects, but we want to have full-time forestry capacity within many districts in our watershed. Like, we want that person to work on forestry stuff only, not buffers sometimes. Like, we want to create full people within these offices to just work on forestry stuff, because we know we have the workload, we just don't have all the funding lined up. So another piece of the funding puzzle that we get to make sure that we're trying to make whole people in each office is through the contribution agreement with the NRCS for the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. So we are the staff on the ground that can do your eligibility site visits. We can help you get projects implemented. It just makes sense, because CREP doesn't pay 100% of the cost to implement a project anyways. So we would need to be engaged at the end of the day regardless. So we can basically do start to finish, and then also provide stewardship for CREP projects as well. Next slide. Permanent protection. So we're really happy to see that the Chesapeake Bay listed permanent protection as something that is needed in the Bay watershed, because in all of the other states, we're losing forested land. So no matter how hard we work to reforest lands, we're losing mature forests to, well, we are, but they are. Development, we might start losing it to solar. So getting permanent protection in the watershed agreement is a really great thing. In working with our land trust partners, we've been able to identify parcels where landowners want a conservation easement, they want to donate their easement. But even donating your conservation easement will still cost you $30,000. So we help with the landowner donating that easement if there's restoration potential. So in a lot of instances, there's wetland restoration that can occur on old ag land, and then reforestation. So we're able to get large deliverables by working with landowners that have this conservation ethic and want to donate their land to a conservation easement. Just to point out here, the last two ones highlighted: upland afforestation, historical ag, land tree planting. Like, we're going to get a lot of this coming up in working with our land trust partners. Funding is falling into place for that. But also floodplain reconnection. Because these lands are no longer used for ag, we're removing berms. So come on in, floodwaters, Next slide. So this is just more about the permanent protection, where we have Soil and Water Conservation District staff providing the technical assistance to plan those restoration projects. We have our land trust partners and realtors and lawyers helping with ownership transfers sometime, or at least putting an easement on that deed. And then sometimes the USC and our capacity with our equipment and construction team are able to remove berms and build wetlands, whereas our forestry team comes in and plans for the reforestation aspect of it. Next slide. Onto our stewardship program. So we don't want to plant trees and walk away. we especially don't want to put tubes on the ground with stakes and walk away. They fall over, stakes break, floods come. We want tubes because we don't want all of our plants to get eaten. So it's this weird conundrum we were in a couple years ago when we first started really large scale planting. So we decided to hire staff to see if the projects we were implementing were even living. That was the first thing. Are they alive? And then the second thing is, okay, to keep this project alive and viable, what do we need to do? Next slide. Since I just brought up 2023. I think prior to 2023, we had a very similar budget, around $50,000 for our stewardship program. In the past 3-4 years, it's increased exponentially, both because we're implementing way more acres, but also because we're now funding maintenance to make sure that these projects live. We're not just going back and replanting constantly with our intern staffs. Instead, we are mowing, we're applying herbicide, and we're putting up fences and maintaining fences. Next slide. And also, we're increasing our number of stewards. So just in the past 4 years, we're literally doubling the size of our stewards. I know Tioga, Shenango County, Otsego County, they have weed whackers, they have like push behind mowers. Their interns are out there mowing. Right? They're doing manual labor to keep these trees alive. They're lifting up tubes and weeding within the tubes. This is the type of activity that needs to occur to make sure that the voles are staying away from our trees and the tubes are on so the deer don't eat them. Next slide. Through that program, we've developed some training materials. We have a virtual steward training. We onboard all of our stewards here coming up on May 20th. If anybody here has interns that they would like to have attend that, by all means, get in touch and we'll send you the link. So we have a virtual training, and then the next day we get out in the field and we show them how it's done in the field. We also have a brochure that we developed called Cultivating Riparian Forests that's available to all landowners. Next slide. Here are just a little blip about our steward work days. Our steward work days, I think we're having 14 this summer. They are just about every single week this summer. Everybody is welcome to come. Your interns, you, district staff, NRCS staff, anybody is welcome to come and get a better idea of how you steward these lands and make sure that the trees produce the results that you're looking for. You can register there. I think maybe this will be sent out after, but we have a link. It's teeny tiny at the bottom there, but also it's at our webpage. It's on our Forest Steward work days. You can find it on our USC website. Next slide, please. So just a few changes in just the past year. We're having 14 work days this year. 2024 to 2025. We are also having 14 work days this year in 2026, but we have more participants each year and we're able to steward more acres. This year, a lot of our stewardship is going to revolve around taking tubes off and removing tubes from sites that are 8, 9, 10 years old, where the trees are large enough to be removing tubes. So we're talking removing thousands of trees from one parcel. It's a lot. And a lot of times you can't really drive in there, right? Because they're riparian. So challenges abound. Next slide.
What do you do with the tubes?
Well, sometimes we reuse them. We have a tube graveyard in the back of our office that we encourage people to take from. In Delaware County, they've been able to work with their local solid waste authority to recycle them, but that is the only place that we've made that work so far. So instead, we give them away to people at tree sales. Oftentimes they're clean enough or they can be cleaned. There's no reason that they can't be used again. We use them on Trees for Trips projects, like we reuse them, but there's a lot of them. So, yeah. If you have recommendations, we're open. We also assess the survival, and we've just in pointing this out, we've changed our assessment protocol this year. It's important to point this out because we're now using like a real forestry measurement to do this. We're using point plot sampling to determine woody vegetation within an area. And this is the way that a lot of programs that you know, especially the forestry programs that exist, measure woody vegetation within an area. So it's not just us being like, I think I planted that, let's call it alive. But it doesn't have a tube, so you don't know who planted it. It doesn't matter who planted it. We're now surveying an area and making sure that we're getting the amount of woody vegetation we want in an area. Next slide. So on average, we're monitoring 14,000 or 1,400 acres for woody vegetation density. And then last year we checked 84,000 stems, which is a ton of stems to check. Like, and I'm 5 foot and little change. So like, you know, get in and we're, you know, popping the tube up. It's just a lot, right? For anybody to do to check that number of stems. So another reason we're adopting the point plot assessment method is so that we can check the same acreage without having to check the same, like a vast number of stems. Next slide. So our core grant, we recently were awarded a community reforestation grant, which is amazing. I will say that this, I forget the total number of properties that we're reforesting through this grant. I think it's 40 something. It's probably actually on the next slide. How about we just go there? Yeah, 48 locations, 71 acres, 22,500 plants, 7 landowners, municipalities, and educational centers. That's who that is. We had all of these projects sitting on the shelf. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. That's good. Most of them are FEMA buyout lots that the municipalities have contacted us about years ago. And we had plans for these years ago. So it was opportunistic that CORE came along and we were able to apply for funding through CORE, and that pays 100% of the restoration on those sites. So that's awesome, because otherwise we don't really get a lot of funding for urban restoration, urban riparian areas. Trees for Tribs doesn't like the urban areas a lot of the time too. There's various rules. So next slide. And then, so we're starting a pilot project with the Nature Conservancy because our Climate Smart Commodities grant with them was taken away. So we're starting another program very similar to Trees for Tributaries. They call it Planting with Purpose. It's, we get the stock in and we get volunteers to plant, but in this case, it's upland areas, not riparian. And it's only trees. And then one of the last things I want to talk about right now and jog your memory to the graph that we saw, we're in 2024, we were really increasing implementation. We got a grant, things were great. The Nature Conservancy noticed that we had all this capacity and had these projects lined up. So we're ready to go for 2025. That's what's happening now. We got funding through National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, forest restoration on the ground support, frogs, to build our capacity, but also implement trees across the landscape, everywhere, not just riparian, upland, urban, and silvopasture. We're also coupling this with the State Afforestation Program, which is some funding that we got through Soil and Water Conservation Committee, Ag and Markets. So that money is was used to essentially match this grant to NIFWIP. So now we have a whole bunch of money coming at us for staff capacity and implementation. That's all to say that over the next 2 years, we are going to really skyrocket and implement. I hope at the end of the 2 years, somebody is there to catch us, so we don't just fall off the end of that. So just quickly going through this, we're going to build capacity big time. I think we're hiring 7 full-time folks with it throughout the watershed. We're going to establish protocols to be incorporated into AEM. We are also going to do a whole lot of restoration. Almost 300 acres of upland afforestation is the deliverable for these grants. So tons of land is going to be implemented in the next 2 years with trees and shrubs. Next slide. So next steps, I think because we have some longer term funding, we're going to talk about getting a riparian specific forward grow to fund all of our contractor, to supply stock to all of our contractors for riparian projects specifically. Stock is going to get tight especially because we saw all these watershed coalitions, they're gonna get capacity and do plantings. A lot of folks are doing plantings. We want to make sure that we're getting the stock that we want. Everybody is welcome to come to our Watershed Forestry Task Force meeting on June 11th in Binghamton. We're looking to implement about 35 acres of silvopasture projects in partnership with ESF and CCE. Those are going to be implemented this fall. And we also are going to look to develop and see who likes a non-ag land afforestation proposal so that we can start it now. And at the end of our 2 years or of having the state afforestation and nip with frogs, we have funding waiting for us to continue going. So it never stops. Next slide. That's it. That's my contact information. You can always email bufferteam@usc.org to get all three of us. But those are the three main contacts for our watershed forestry program. Questions?
Lydia, awesome, thank you. For the shrubs that you plant, do you plant any fruit-bearing shrubs, and have you seen signs of spotted lanternfly?
But yes to both.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Any major concerns or perhaps a shift away from fruit to non-fruit bearing shrub? Or are you just gonna ride up the wave?
It's interesting.
For SLF.
I didn't think about implementing non-fruit bearing shrubs because that is what our landowners most often want. With the spotted lanternfly management, it's mostly been invasive species treatment of the ailanthus tree is how we're treating projects that have spotted lanternfly. Yeah.
But you definitely have seen it.
Yeah, it's just in Chemung County, in Broome County. I don't know if Tioga has seen it at all, but yeah.
Yeah.
Probably in towns and stuff. Yeah, urban centers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Marie.
Trees for Trips, what's the story on that? I mean, you've been still getting Trees for Trips through DEC?
No,
Oh, you
we
have
have
not.
only
Okay.
once gotten trees stock from the
Oh.
Saratoga Nursery
Okay.
through Trees for Trips. Saratoga Nursery doesn't pull their stock until probably the second week of May, and we're planting now. Yep. And we've also noticed with Trees for Tributaries, since it's a volunteer-led program, we don't like to have volunteers dealing with bare rootstock. It's just not a great mix, so we get a containerized stock, a small container for our Trees for Tributaries program, and things seem to live much better now.
Thank you.
When you use a contractor, you're bringing the plants on site, right? You're managing that part of it?
No.
They
bring the
that's part of
stock.
the contract with them?
Yes. And that's what's worked out so well. Like when you're talking about implementing 60,000 trees and shrubs a season, we don't have the holding capacity for that. They do, and in fact, they've actually contracted out a golf course in Shenango County to put all of their stock in and use that as a central hub to be able to do projects from there.
So they do not, so that's not the projects you're using your Ford.
We're thinking
Purchase.
about providing the stock for projects. We're talking about what that looks like, how many trailers you need, how many people you need running things around. Or if we can contract with a nursery and then just bring that stock to a location for the contractors to then sort out. We're still digging into it, but I know that we don't want our staff to have to water, maintain, and move around 60,000 plants. 10,000 is enough. Yeah. I will say too, with the contractors, engaging in with a contractor, I don't know if I made this clear, all of the districts within the coalition provide all of their contractor requests, like all of their bid requests to me by a certain date twice a year. And then I send them out as a bundle so that contractors know the entire workload within the coalition area. They don't contract for that bundle all at once. They coordinate with each individual district per project, but they know the workload at one time because that was something that they communicated to us as a need. They didn't want each county being like, here's my one project, here's my 3 projects. They wanted everything all at once. So that's really helped a lot too.
I just had, I mentioned before, I'm the CREP coordinator, so I get to look at the productivity of the CREP program every year. And every year, the Upper Susquehanna Coalition, far away, plants more trees, does more acres and buffers, all of it, all the practices that the CREP program offers. A lot of that was because of the added incentives that USDA and the state decided to put towards it a couple of years ago. But it's a good example of what can be done, and for other coalition coordinators that are in the room or listening. And Lydia's been at it for a long time, so this hasn't sort of, this is hard work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it took a lot for them to get to this point, but as you've heard Lydia say a few times, there's the demand is outpacing the funding right now. And one thing I hope Tony picked up on, riparian buffers, #1 PNP for phosphorus. So that's a good thing to zero in on, and your planning objectives. And also, I think for the Eastern Finger Lakes contract, particularly interesting because it does allow for work to be done on non-ag land, which is essentially where all the demand is right now. State Committee, Ag and Markets, that's a bit of a toughie to get money to go onto non-ag land when we have so many farms asking for and not getting funding. So non-ag land is a bit of a reach, but these are the kinds of things where all the opportunity lies. And so the kind of relationship that they have with Division of Water really has to be fostered with Division of Land and Forest. These are my observations, just from the outside looking in after so many years. I'm optimistic because if we had a goal with no demand out there, we'd really be hard pressed to get our goals achieved. But the fact that there are landowners out there that want to have these trees planted, not forestry, traditionally forestry, but afforestation, planting trees where there are no trees. I think we should all be at least a little bit hopeful that the people are out there willing to have the trees planted on their property. I do it on my own property. But the funding is just, I think, what's holding us up. And so this is a great meeting. Your position, I think, is the point on coalitions could be really critical. And so that's my 2 cents. I just wanted folks to realize that when it comes to planting trees, nobody really does it like USC does it. And it's a model for the rest of the state.
I just would add too, I think it's important to note when we say USC, it's interchangeable with soil and water conservation districts because that's who we are. It's just that we have invested in staff work throughout the watershed so we can help fill gaps where districts don't have that capacity. And that's one of the reasons, or actually my main reason for us coming here today is we've had these discussions that we're starting to get money coming for implementation, but it's not following with capacity. It's not following with technical staff, and we can't keep asking our staff to do more than they're already doing. So we need, and we can show you guys the numbers. She showed you the numbers that if we have forestry staff dedicated to forestry type work, be it buffers, be it putting them on non-ag or ag lands, we can get projects on the ground. We can get them on the ground in a hurry, but we need that dedicated staff. So that's kind of our ask too today is that, we're aware that it's great that you're throwing dollars at us for implementation, but we need people at the districts to be able to get this work done. And that has to be supported as well.
I'll emphasize too, with the core grant, everything was planned, right? Before, years ago. So when the DEC grants come out, everything needs to be planned. So you need that forestry capacity to be able to plan those projects to even apply for the grants. Luckily, that was just something we had sitting on the shelf, but if we didn't have that capacity years ago to develop those plans, we may not have been able to apply for that grant.
And the one thing I would say, Wendy, along those lines is the state talks about these goals of how many trees they want to get planted and so on. The districts should toot their own horn as far as what they're accomplishing and what they hope to accomplish so that people that set these goals know that there's a way to get it done. the funds are made available.
So Lydia, are all those trees on the tree tracker to that point?
Nope.
Not one. So I think I hear the capacity issue is loud and clear, right? And, is there a way that we align state agencies to ensure that the districts are getting the capacity so that you're ready to implement the implementation phase? Is there like a working mechanism that makes it happen?
Well, for us, it really starts with the state aid and districts program, through the EPF.
Okay.
And I think that's where, there's continual support for conservation district capacity. And that can fund a whole lot of things, right? First, it's reimbursement for technical expenditures. It's also some mini grant funding for conservation project assistance. And then C is where the majority of the funds go. And that can go to staff, but also can go to buildings and infrastructure and equipment and other programs and projects. So it can do a lot. And for us in the state committee, Bethany, I apologize for taking this question. Derek was looking right at me when she asked it. So I was. Okay. So I was like, oh, I can't avoid this, whatever. But as a whole and as a state for district capacity, that's really the program that does it. But I think what maybe Wendy and I think, you heard it earlier too with the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition is talk about like beyond that core district aid and reimbursement, how can we multiply efforts even more like with using the coalition model? And some of that could be districts combining, a lot of those resources, but for the most part, that those funds were really already spent, right? And planned out well in advance. So that's when, capacity funding for Eastern Finger Lakes comes in handy to be able to fill those gaps. And, so I think there's still continued opportunity for DC, Ag and Market State Committee to work together so that we can, find funds to be able to fill those gaps, for other coalitions. And the Susquehanna has been around one of the earliest coalitions. In the states
over
in the
30
early
years.
2000s. And to Scott's point, it wasn't built overnight. And so it was built up over many, many years. Initially too, there was some 319 funding that was shared between DEC, Ag and Markets and State Committee to be able to bring in coordinators for the first time. We talked about that quickly. Alice asked, and there's her name on the screen. Alice asked earlier about where the funding came from for some of the earlier coalition coordinators, and that 319 funding was actually a way to really get that done. So without that kind of dedicated funding source, we've been trying to find funds, between the two agencies and put that to work, to be able to augment, supplement the state aid to districts capacity funding. So, I think it's still a very important conversation to have and figure out how we can best support in the long run.
We've been trying to engage with Division of Lands and Forests. Now there is an MOU between Ag and Markets and Division of Lands and Forests, much like there's one with the Division of Water and Ag and Markets. So we've gotten money through Division of Water, through Ag and Markets before. Is Lands and Forests building these hubs, and why? When we are very efficient and effective at what we're doing, we're confused.
Who are you working with? Like, I don't understand how this is just ridiculous. Like, are you working with Chris Sprigg or are you working with Fiona Watt?
There's nobody. at
Okay, so
Division
like
of Lands
that's
and
like,
Forests that we work with.
let's talk, so I want to make sure the whole, so I don't think it should just be like an Ag and Markets and DEC
Right,
conversation
right.
either, because the Department of State has significant planning money available.
Yep.
Why Empire State Development isn't trying to get Georgia Potters here is beyond me. That seems like a great thing for New York to do. We like trees, and it seems like it's square in our Port Alpha, be like, look at what we're doing. This seems like there's some real big ways to continue to leverage the synergies here. So, and I'm also just really curious, as far as this is you've been its best idea, right? From the this is why you all exist, right? Because we have really bad land use policies that cause the Dust Bowl. So we're all here today, and we get to breathe air and not dust. What's the strategic plan to better reorganize and restructure the dollars so that, the key thing you said is that you had plans
and then you can implement. And then you were ready to go, right? So like, you can't be like, hey, you know, here's the plan, and you're like, thank goodness the plan was 25 years old, they're finally, here's some money. You were actually able to go and do that. So, what's so great about the districts is that you're able to operate in a little bit more closer to reality, than, the fact that we don't have the state budget next year. So it's slightly more predictable. And I think there's, we can leverage those strengths together. So I don't know if there's like the state committee does kind of a strategic plan, and how DEC can help do that. And the broader, trans-divisional piece, because, salmon grows on trees. So there.
I just, under trees.
Well, Derek, since you're asking.
Yeah, no, where are the trees? It should have locality where the trees are.
Instead of districts submitting applications for L, instead of districts submitting applications for the reforestation, regenerate New York, just give us the money. I mean, that's what I'm proposing.
Yeah, so I also Jennifer, that'd be great. I have like a comptroller and some other people, so you're gonna get some red tape. Yeah. It's the player. But yeah, I think we can figure out how to do it smarter.
So I think one example is you had that 46 million available. I got going through all the details of what a district basically could or could not apply for. We wanted to create a new nursery, go to our schools, teach our classes, have the kids collect the seeds, do all the stuff that they can do, bring them to us. We'll do grow outs. I have big plans. I get going through the documents and you can't break sod, you can't do this, you can't. I'm like, oh my gosh, we can't even build a nursery if we wanted to. So I shake my head a little bit. There has to be a mechanism, whether it's the MOU or whatever it is, to take those dollars, get over to ag markets and get it down to us where we can get conservation on the ground. They've described a model to you that is highly successful, that just needs funding and planning to do it. And we want to add one more piece where we actually want to control our own stock. We want to take our bare root stock and or work with the school districts on an educational piece of it, get all their ag and tech classes to bring us the seeds, QA, QC them, and grow them out. Wouldn't that be great? Our seeds we're planting are grown in Delaware County, collected by our students. I mean, I don't know how much more engagement we would need, but there's too much red tape. I can't get the funding. So I'd rather rely on you guys to be able to open up these mechanisms for us to facilitate and operate effectively. Because I think if you're going to get to the number of trees, first of all, you better start counting the stock we're already putting in the ground, which nobody is. And second of all, let us grow. Let us develop these things. I think the best training is starting at the school age. They would all love it. I watch them tap trees for a lot of their classes. Those kids are ecstatic. They're engaged. Imagine if we give them a green light, we'll pick up every seed and collect, and here's what you're looking for. It's a home run. We just need to work together to figure this out.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of where I was getting at is that, you're already doing a lot. And people are setting these goals. Are they seeing what you've already done and what you're doing? Are they adding that into, and
I already know they're not counting.
You've proven you can get it done. Yeah. So, yeah, the next step is resources to do it.
Working with the USC, I mean, it's one of our greatest partnerships. These guys come through. I don't have to have a forester on staff. I can just say, hey, we need help in this area. 1, 2, 3. We have it immediately. They influence a lot of districts around us. That's why we're so gung ho. I'll say again, like Delaware, you're going to paint that map. There's going to be a Delaware coalition coming soon because we see the power of how this works and how well it works. And we just need to do that. It's a very effective model. So we're looking forward to any help you can give us, that way, shape, or form. And if we need to start calling legislators, whatever we have to do, we're here at the table to do it.
I think perhaps a first step, next step, whatever you want to call it, could be, I think I mentioned this maybe on a staff call one day, maybe we reach out to Fiona or someone at Lands and Forests and remind them that there is this MOU in place, there is a structure to share funding. If they have funding that needs to get spent out on the ground, we have that ability and.
Yeah, just a little bit of history on that MOU that was developed for the Climate Smart Commodities program because it was DEC that actually ended up putting the application in. So it was the mechanism for them to be able to get us the money so we could support our program, through it. But we also wrote it in a way that said, okay, what happens when Climate Smart Commodities is done in 10 years, wishful thinking. Or if it's, so there are elements to that which we could expand into other program areas. So Bethany, to your point, reminder that it's there and try to figure out how we can use the division of water model that we fostered over many years to be able to bring, more capacity for forestry and forest management. They've been given an impossible task. We set up the state funding so that we could continue our CRF program without the federal funding. They ended up keeping it. So all their focus and effort right now is to try to get it out the door with new programs in an impossible time frame. So, to just kind of explain a little bit of why, some of the partnership efforts that we were establishing throughout that process have fallen back a little bit is due to that workload. But Fiona gave and staff gave a presentation to Wood Products Development Council at our last meeting about what they're up against to try to get that funding out the door. Molly, Asset, and others. But we also said at that meeting, as soon as you guys can tell us what's going on, what the timeline is, let us help get that word out, because I think we already talked about the demand that's out there now. So hopefully there will be some time to get that money spent. But I think the conversation with them, would be great, and continue, hopefully, or at least pick back up what we were working on together, over that time frame. So.
And then one of my new gigs is I'm also a board member of ESF now. So how are I saw you have some partnerships with ESF, and so are there other relationships with some of the other universities and like the other SUNYs? Because DEC is also kind of looking at all of our academic relationships too. Because they've been all these one-offs for a long time, right? Like that's the other thing that I'm hearing is these one-offs and kind of looking like, wait a minute, can we look at this all together? We want to continue the relationships that we're having, but like it's 2026, it's not 1984. So does this actually work for the goals in which the direction we're going? So are we leveraging kind of the relationships with the universities enough? Is there some additional opportunities to leverage that?
It'd be great to have a stage in which to foster those relationships more, BU's at our table. They come to our bi-monthly meetings, they engage. But ESF has just really started engaging in their career services by giving us a paid intern, which is awesome. But there definitely needs to be more like with CAFRE or whatever, and more.
And then what about like different forest styles, right? So like we have these like really old red pine, stuck them in the ground to grow fast, cold dirt. Not really exactly ideal. End of life, people are excited about potentially using them for something else. So like rubbing more diverse, exciting forests that look more like pre-colonial times. Is that a strategy?
Yes.
Great, that's awesome.
Our planting plans often have like 30+ species.
Thanks.
And love it. Very diverse. Thank you all so much.
You guys are great.
All right.
Yeah, so, let's go around the room and, a reminder, voting members and advisory members, report, no need to share another report. I'm very confident. I'll go first. So we had a technical advisory committee meeting last week on April 16th. At that meeting, Jennifer presented a presentation to the group that outlined some proposed changes for round 10 of the climate resilient farming program. We're also going to be presenting that to our soil and water conservation district partners at our upcoming state programs advisory committee meeting. Tim Clark presented and reviewed with the advisory members the changes that he has facilitated to the Conservation Approval Authority policy, which I think is ready for this committee's approval. So did we say May?
Yeah.
So on the May agenda, Tim is going to present on that policy and hopefully be able to seek your approval at that time. And we also held a BMP system overview, a review for our TAC members. Gideon led that presentation. That was something that our advisory members requested. So this presentation that we had last week was all about livestock and use areas and bedded TAC systems. So I think the next one on the docket for request was compost facilities. And we'll work that into our TAC agendas as we can. I'll be attending the New York State Association of Conservation Districts meeting tomorrow evening. And our staff is working on planning our regional managers meetings, which are held over the first couple of weeks of June. Save the date was sent out. So if you're interested in attending one of those, please make sure you respond to the appropriate regional coordinator. We are finalizing the agenda for those meetings, so that's going to be sent out soon as well. And just starting to work on planning the July state committee meeting, which hopefully will be somewhere out in New York State, and we'll include the conservation too. We do, I will just say Delaware County stepped up and I think is willing to maybe help us put together a meeting. So I hadn't really, only just a couple minutes ago, talked to Grady about it. So.
Sounds good to me.
So we have a meeting. I don't want to do too much.
State Gideons.
But that's it for me. Lydia, do you have any other reports?
I do not.
Melissa?
Oh, nothing to report from me. Thank you, Bethany.
I probably said enough, but thank you for everybody in the room. I do reach out to a lot of you. You know, I'm obviously new in this role, but I've been with the district for 27 years. So I do rely on a lot of your expertise around the room, whether you think I'm listening or not. I assure you I always am. So I appreciate everything you guys do. And, you know, our district's really running full speed because of you. So appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll just mention that the next meeting of the district State Committee Operations Subcommittee meeting will convene July 30th from 1 to 3 via WebEx. And Maureen, to your question about the Ag Point application or the extension, the aquifer, the source water protection work was related to an aquifer that's not utilized for public water, but is unconsolidated sand and gravels in your neck of the woods. So it's in Wacker Creek, Caledonia, Leroy Valley. So a lot of karst in that area, so that project's pretty important. So
Interesting.
thanks.
Thank you.
Region 2, just doing traditional AEA duties, a lot of CRF round 9 plan of works. They're almost done. Ag Point Source 31 reviews. Some of my districts have asked me to take a look and just see, and everything's uploaded. So there's quite a few from my region there that we scored. Board meetings and trainings going on, doing a lot of those this spring. And as you heard today, the Eastern Finger Lakes Coalition continues to progress forward, and I'm happy to help out anywhere I can.
Jerry, anything?
I'm all set. Thank you so much.
Right?
Nothing else to add. Thanks.
Nothing else.
I'm all set. Tim?
Just want to mention that there is Cornell Pro Dairy PE training for engineers next week. You can still register until Thursday. If you know anybody that would be interested. That's all.
Well, as Brian had mentioned, Lauren had retired from EBM managing the EBM program. So in the meantime, until we hire backfill, which could be very soon, or who knows, could be a little longer. In the meantime, I have it. So we should be announcing the awards very shortly, hopefully any day now. But yeah, any EBM, the stream quarter pilot related questions, you can send it to me and I'll send it to Greg.
We'll screw the white ball together.
That's it.
Thanks, Tim. Jennifer?
Yeah, I have just a quick question for the group. And I hope you guys don't get mad at me about this, but like, my question is in regards to the proposed EPF budget. In the assembly has a proposed, $19.1 million line for the climate resilient farming grant. And within that line, there are 4 carve-outs. And I'm wondering if this group, if the committee supports those carve-outs and were they consulted before they were proposed? Yeah, because
I'm assuming probably they were.
No,
Consulted.
no.
Uh,
Our part, I'll just say, our part of the budget development happens as part of the executive package. State committee is considered a, state agency, and we also are housed within ag markets. So we are part of the executive budget development. We're part of that executive branch of government, so our input goes into the governor's proposed budget. We put up our numbers, we put up what we think is acceptable. It goes through the process, and that's what is included as part of the executive budget. So we are not generally consulted of when the Assembly and the Senate develop their own budgets in response to the executive proposed budget. So we don't, I'll just say, we didn't have any advanced knowledge of that. I don't think as part of the sub-allocation carve-out process, you know, it's not like they asked, okay, can we request it here? It just, that happens. It's part of legislative priorities. Carve-out sub-allocations, however you want to say it, can happen at any part of the process. The governor could have chosen to do that. Assembly and Senate can choose to do that. That's just part of the process, and now it's being deliberated and has not been approved yet, obviously. I think it's fair to say that we would like clean lines in the Environmental Protection Fund, always, but that doesn't always happen, and we make the best of what's approved in the budget.
But I would say that I think districts have shown over the years that given the resources, they can get the work done and put money to good use, and sometimes you need to remind people of that.
Numbers on how much it was, the programs oversubscribed was provided.
once all of these budgets came. Yeah, so just so that the group is aware, the carve outs amount to $7.5 million, so it would reduce the climate smart program, or not the climate smart, but the CRF program by $7.5 million. And I find it a little alarming that the committee is not made aware of these potential carve outs prior to, and I'm not saying that you guys can do anything about it, but I'm just making a point that's alarming. So to that point though, Bethany, is it possible for the soil and water districts to request a sub allocation from a different line in the EPF if desired?
You have to work with your legislature. I mean, we think a carve out came years ago from the state aid program, and that was like,
Yeah, that was
not supported by anybody. And so, I don't know, I think if you want to request a carve out, I would recommend talking to your legislatures.
I don't have anything.
Nothing else to.
Just thank you to everybody who presented today. It's very informative.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Leopold, recommendations or nominations are due soon. Email went out, I think maybe last week, this week, they're running together at this point. So, check out those opportunities. That's what I wanted to remind everybody of.
I've got nothing. Thank you for letting me sit in today. It's very informative.
Thank you. More than you already went. Thank you. Greg?
Thanks, Bethany and Melissa, for making this happen.
Ditto. Wonderful meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.
Fantastic. Who's next? I can't see Doug. Anything?
All good. Thanks.
I learned a lot.
I watched, he took a lot of notes.
That's the point. Yeah. Scott?
Nothing in particular, but just to say I'm old fashioned, so I love these in-person meetings. And just so everybody knows, we do get together for every one of these every month. We sometimes meet in Syracuse, which is nice. And we get to have the kind of networking opportunities and relationship building opportunities that you just don't get on WebEx. So if you had a good time today, I'm sure everybody did.
Let me do it again.
I encourage everybody to show up at one of the, maybe not Darren's Fish Farm, but, show up to the Syracuse site or the Albany site and participate in person. I think everybody gets a lot more out of it when that.
And I'll add too, just that committees, councils, whatever the state, puts together. The fact that we do meet every month to be able to advance projects and get stuff done, that's pretty rare too. So Scott's point, we'll doing this again next month, right? So yeah, these are great, wonderful.
Caitlin?
I would like to thank the state committee board members for their initiative that was led by Bethany to consider a $5,000 donation to the New York State Envirothon 26 years ago, okay? Y2K. I was a senior in high school and I participated in the Envirothon at Oneida County and Jesses County. And I was on the track to become a secondary education history teacher. And because of Envirothon, I changed my whole career to environmental science and geography. So I want to thank all of the board members for supporting the Envirothon. This is where conservation districts pull in the next generation. So thank you all. Awesome.
Just a quick plug, we're gonna be meeting May 15th to talk about conservation skills workshop. So you guys can, work through your focus area, the CDA for specific trainings that your county wants. Those on the line can follow that same route. If there's something kind of ag related or any topic, you can reach out to me, Greg, Brennan, or Gideon, and we'll get it on the list and make sure that we're, if we can bring something to the table this summer and fall for you guys to meet your needs. So think about it in the coming weeks and reach out. Sorry.
Does everybody else have an holiday ideas?
Well, I just really want to thank you all for being here. It was an honor to host you all. It's been a few decades since I've been to a state committee for the Soil and Water Conservation District, so I'm really, really happy that we get to host you here. As you can tell, it's a very corporate office, so I'm really excited to have some charismatic dead megafauna around, even though some are scrubby looking. We got other people's stuff. By all means, we'll take that on, but you're all welcome back anytime. Always looking for continuous improvement for systems to leverage to make sure that we can always keep moving things forward. And the just amazing work you're doing every day. I think the story of how the Envirothon had changed your trajectory. A third of our of DEC's workforce come from ESF. I have the vast majority of our staff did some work with soil and water conservation districts either in the beginning or when they retire. Joking with Carrie that this is the kind of revolving doors we really like, and I think we want to just continue this as much as possible so we can all deliver what's best for everybody. So always an open door, and think there's always really amazing things that we get to do together. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have to say something now.
I already said something. No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. I will just open it up to anyone who's on the line. If you have something you want to report out, please come off of mute and now's your opportunity. Okay.
All right.
I have one question. What is that?
Oh, somebody put that there. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's real or not.
Okay, I just.
There is a monster at the back.
Yeah, I saw that.
We're looking at it.
Yeah. See, culture. The office of people that know all.
I think you're right, it might be a little bit.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, one six.
That's not.
Yeah. I know. I did not, yeah.
Really?
I'm not sure. I'm supposed to, proctor my soils tested in Monroe County, so.
It worked.
Thanks to everyone, very informative meeting. Always enjoy face-to-face meetings like this. More productive.
Yeah, like just that.
See you all.
Thank you. Yeah.